Chapter 562. Ever since Fushi showed his might and saved the Khanate alliance from the siege of the Khanate ferocious beasts, the attitude of the people of the Khanate alliance towards Fushi changed. Their previous hostility turned into reverence and a trace of fear. How could they not be afraid? The group of Khanate ferocious beasts that could almost destroy the Khanate alliance was forced to retreat by Fushi alone. This kind of power could completely destroy the Khanate alliance alone. Wouldn't it be courting death to be enemies with such a person? With this thought in mind, the Khanate alliance gradually did not dare to provoke the human race. There were even some Khanate races who couldn't help but want to join the human race when they saw how powerful Fushi was. Great, the innate alliance that was already not united to begin with. After this incident, it could be said that it had completely ceased to exist in name. When the remaining Khanate races saw this, they knew that they could not go against the general trend. They also joined the human race in order to obtain Fushi's protection. At this point, the Khanate alliance was considered to have collapsed. At this moment, in the primordial world, except for some Khanate races who were still holding on to the glory of being Khanate life forms, most of the other Khanate races had joined the human race. As a result, the primordial world, which had been in chaos since the creation of the world, was finally unified. All the races respected the human race. This was even the 3 Khanate races, and what the Magi and demons had not done. Now, it was done by the human race, although the 10,000 races were a little exaggerated. No matter what in name, the human race had unified the primordial world. It was also at this moment that the destiny of heaven and earth began to gather towards the human race to increase their foundation. However, although the human race had unified the primordial world, the chaos of the Khanate ferocious beasts was still not over. They were still causing chaos in the primordial world. Moreover, in the dark, the demon sect was eyeing covetously. No one knew what schemes they were planning. It could be said that if these threats were not eliminated, the primordial world would not be peaceful, and the 10,000 races would not be stable. The rule of the human race would be shaken at any time. Therefore, after Fushi obtained the loyalty of the 10,000 races, he was determined to integrate the power of the 10,000 races to quell the chaos of the ferocious beasts in one fell swoop and return peace to the primordial world. Today, the 10,000 races gathered in the ancestral land of the human race. They were responding to Fushi's call. They swore an alliance to fight against the Khanate ferocious beasts. At the same time, this move also meant to establish the dignity of the human tribe, deepen the human tribe's rule over the untainted land, and clarify the status of the human tribe among the 10,000 tribes. Although the human race had unified the untainted land, they were still too weak and had too few experts. If it weren't for Fushi's unparalleled battle prowess, the primordial races wouldn't have taken the human race seriously. At this moment, Fushi was the one that the innate races respected, not the human race. This situation was extremely unfavorable to the human race. If Fushi were to disappear for a period of time, the innate races would definitely have other ideas and overthrow the human race's rule. All in all, the rule of the human race was not stable, and they relied too much on individual strength, which meant that they were not worthy of their positions. The solution to this problem was simple. They had to work hard to increase the strength of the human race so that they would be worthy of their status. They had to shift the respect of the other races towards Fushi to the human race. It was easier said than done. The environment of the world had changed, and the path of cultivation in the future would only become more and more difficult. It would be difficult for a force as powerful as the shamans and demons to appear again. We are willing to follow Fushi's lead and form an alliance to resist the Khanate ferocious beasts. Under the witness of heaven and earth, the leaders of the primordial races made an alliance with Fushi. They were willing to follow his orders and quell the chaos of the Khanate ferocious beasts together. Whoosh! With the establishment of the alliance, an intense change occurred in the mysterious and unfathomable river of destiny. The tributary of the river of destiny that belonged to the human race suddenly flowed rapidly. At the same time, the tributary formed by the providence of the primordial races split off and flowed towards the providence of the human race. Whoosh! Whoosh! The providence of the primordial races used their own providence to strengthen the providence of the human race. It was like 100 rivers returning to the sea, causing the providence of the human race to become stronger and stronger. Gradually, it overshadowed all the other races and became the largest of the countless tributaries of the River of Destiny. Boom! At this moment, the torch that symbolized the providence of the human race suddenly soared. From the previous 5 colors, it transformed into hundreds of millions of colors. From afar, it looked like a ball of resplendent light that was incomparably dazzling. At this moment, the providence of the human race soared. And at the same time as the providence skyrocketed, the providence feedback also began. Rumble. Almost at the same time, hundreds of human golden immortals ascended to Tai Jinxian, greatly increasing the foundation of the human race. The remaining mystic immortals, celestial immortals, and cultivators who had yet to ascend to the immortal Tao were also countless. There was also a half-step Daluo Jinxian existence who, with the help of the providence feedback, finally took the crucial step and cultivated into a Daluo Jinxian. Now he existed with the world and with the heavens. Of course, these were not the most eye-catching. The most eye-catching was still Fushi. He who was already a mid-saint directly stepped into the perfected demi-saint realm with the help of the human race's providence, becoming the top great master of the wilderness in one fell swoop. At this moment, the primordial races that were already in awe of Fushi were even more in awe. High in the sky, where the origin space was located in the deepest layer of heaven and earth, as the primordial races worshipped Fushi, wisps of clear light began to converge, gradually condensing into a droplet-shaped treasure. This item was surrounded by a dense aura of heaven and earth, and countless mysterious Tao patterns were faintly discernible within it. It was as if one could see the evolution of heaven and earth, the changes of the great Tao, and its extreme mysteries. It came from the same source as the heavenly Tao, flickering with an inexplicable luster, interweaving the trajectory of fate as if it could affect everything. This was the mandate of heaven, the mandate of heaven and earth's protagonist. As long as the mandate of heaven merged with the human race's providence, it meant that the human race would become the protagonist of heaven and earth. Unfortunately, the mandate of heaven had just been born and was far from mature. Moreover, even if it was now mature, the human race's current providence would not be able to accept the mandate of heaven. Therefore, all of this needed to wait for the human race to become stronger. The mandate of heaven was closely related to the human race. The stronger the human race was, the faster the mandate of heaven would condense. Since the alliance had been established, Fushi did not stand on ceremony. He directly selected experts from the primordial races to form an army and began to practice the formation. This was training the soldiers. It was best to use array formations to deal with primordial ferocious beasts. Otherwise, even if the human alliance army defeated the primordial ferocious beasts, they would suffer heavy losses and leave an opportunity for the demon sect to take advantage of. Therefore, in the battle with the primordial ferocious beasts, not only did the human alliance army have to win, but they also had to preserve their strength as much as possible. Otherwise, if the demon sect were to take advantage of them, it would be terrible. Fushi was training his troops, so let's not talk about it for the time being. On the other hand, the demon sect had lost several supreme experts in succession. It could be said that their vitality had been greatly damaged. They should have kept a low profile to prevent others from taking advantage of them. However, because of the appearance of the ruins of End, not only did the demon sect not shrink their forces, but they became even more arrogant. They kept causing trouble in the primordial world to show their existence. They were planning to completely walk from the dark to the light. In fact, the demon sect could not be blamed for doing so. After suffering consecutive blows, the upper echelons of the demon sect suddenly realized that the situation in the primordial world was gradually becoming more and more disadvantageous for them. If this continued, the demon sect's opportunity to prosper would be over just as it began. The upper echelons of the demon sect naturally would not allow this. They had waited for countless years for an opportunity for the demon sect to prosper. They were about to suppress the Xian sect and return to the primordial world. However, for some reason, heaven and earth supremes suddenly appeared and destroyed the great situation that the demon sect had created with great difficulty. They completely reversed the situation of the primordial world and defeated the rising momentum of the demon sect. The upper echelons of the demon sect were filled with hatred. However, they had no choice. The other party was too strong. They could not defeat him at all. However, it was absolutely impossible for them to give up the opportunity that the demon sect had waited for with great difficulty. Therefore, the upper echelons of the demon sect decided to go all out. They would move from the dark to the light and fight for their lives with the heavens. Before the saints returned, they would take down the primordial world. If they won, the demon sect would prosper and be able to suppress the Xian sect. If they lost, it did not matter. The demon sect was already in such a state. If they were to fall, how far could they fall? This was a typical example of a barefoot person not being afraid of wearing shoes. The Xian sect was huge and had many scruples. The demon sect was different. Other than their lives, they had nothing. When they did things, they naturally had no taboos. Only when they had no attachments could they have no scruples. However, the demon sect wanted to make a final gamble, which happened to be what Hao Tian and the others wanted. The chaos of the Khanate beasts was handed over to the human race and the Khanate 10,000 races. The demon sect would naturally be dealt with by the heavenly court and the Xian sect. However, the demon sect was hidden too deeply. They could not find their nest at all. In that case, how could they destroy it? However, now that the demon sect had taken the initiative to walk out, Hao Tian and the others would not foolishly wait for them to come. Naturally, they took the initiative to attack. After receiving the news of the demon sect's appearance, Hao Tian, Gao Qin, and Lu Eyes, who were searching for traces of the demon sect in the primordial world, rushed to the demon sect together. They intended to kill all the experts of the demon sect before the demon ancestor Rahu appeared. To them, if they weakened the demon sect's strength as much as possible now, their chances of survival would be higher when the demon ancestor Rahu settled the score. East Sea, Penglai Immortal Island of the 3 Immortal Islands. With the end of the shaman and demon tribulation, the shackles that restricted Xian Qing's breakthrough had long disappeared without a trace. In other words, after the baptism of the tribulation, Xian Qing could finally take a step forward and break through from the Daluo Jingxian to the Sage-to-Be. In fact, Xian Qing could have broken through tens of thousands of years ago. However, he hesitated. That was because he was a direct descendant of the 3 Pure Ones, the most authentic disciple of the Celestial Sect of Wonders. He also cultivated the most profound Celestial Sect techniques. Since that was the case, if he broke through to the Sage-to-Be realm, he would naturally take the path of the 3 corpses of the Celestial Sect of Wonders. Otherwise, he would directly use his strength to prove his Tao and break through to the Sage-to-Be realm. That did not make sense. Xian Qing was formed from the clear air of the 9 heavens. He was born with a powerful primordial spirit and a weak physical body. This did not mean that he could not use his strength to prove his Tao. Instead, this method was completely ineffective for him. The gains did not make up for the losses. The path of the 3 corpses was the most suitable for him. Xian Qing naturally knew the method of the 3 corpses, and there was more than one. They were all top-notch. Not to mention, he had long understood the good and evil corpses and could slash them at any time. However, Xian Qing did not want to slash the corpses. To be precise, Feng Zichen did not want to slash the corpses. From the Tao ancestors' point of view, whether it was good, evil, or obsession, they would all affect one's Tao heart. In order to seek the Tao ancestor was determined to slash it out to strengthen his Tao heart. He could also prevent himself from being affected by emotions and maintain an absolutely calm state of mind. However, this was the Tao of the Tao ancestor. It was the Tao of the celestial sect of wonders. It was the Tao of the heavens, not Feng Zichen's Tao. Feng Zichen's Tao had long been self-contained. It had transcended the Tao of the heavens, covered everything, and pointed directly to the origin of the Tao. He was worried that after he slashed the 3 corpses, he would be affected by the Tao of the Tao ancestor and mess up his own Tao. Therefore, Feng Zichen did not plan to slash the corpses, especially the supreme state of mind that he had obtained after slashing the 3 corpses. The moment he became the great Taoist priests, he naturally had it. Just this point alone made Feng Zichen give up on the idea of slashing the 3 corpses. The risk was too great, and the benefits were too small. It was not worth the risk at all. However, if he did not slash the corpses, he would not be able to become a sage-to-be. That would be troublesome. He directly used strength to prove his Tao. Feng Zichen was confident that he could hide it from the primitive world cultivators. However, he definitely could not hide it from the saint of the prime clear lineage. A person who specialized in the great Tao of the celestial sect of wonders suddenly used strength to prove his Tao. Unless the saint of the prime clear lineage was a fool, he would definitely suspect Xianqing's identity. For this, after Xianqing became an early-stage quasi-saint, he did not break through for a long time. He was completely in a dilemma. This dilemma lasted for tens of thousands of years. Only today did Xianqing think of a solution. Since he could not break through with the slashing the 3 corpses technique, he would think of a way to improve this technique. He would imitate the supreme experts of the primordial era and walk a path that belonged to him alone. In this way, even if he did not break through with the slashing the 3 corpses technique, the saint of the prime clear lineage would not doubt him. Instead, he would praise him. Slashing one's own Tao was an incredible feat in any era. It would become a legend and be remembered and worshipped by the world. A long time ago, there was no such realm as a quasi-saint in the world. Above the Daluo Jingxian was the primordial Daluo Jingxian. However, after the Tao ancestor attained the Tao, a quasi-saint realm was separated from the Daluo Jingxian. This method was simple. A long time ago, the Daluo Jingxian had 2 cultivation processes. First, he cultivated the 3 flowers above his head. When he reached perfection, he began to jump out of the river of time and space. Therefore, the Tao ancestor divided this process into 2 realms. The process of cultivating the 3 flowers above his head was still called the Daluo Jingxian. The process of jumping out of the river of time and space was called the quasi-saint realm. Xianqing's plan was he would not slash the 3 corpses anymore. He would directly slash the past, future, and present. This method was much more difficult than the slashing the 3 corpses, but the benefits were obvious. That was when he broke through to the primordial Daluo Jingxian in the future. It would be easier than the cultivators who cultivated the slashing the 3 corpses technique. Why was the slashing the 3 corpses technique popular in the primordial world? Was it because he was strong enough? No, it was because he was the simplest, universal, and suitable for most cultivators. Therefore, he could surpass all techniques and become the mainstream of the primordial world. Compared to the slashing the 3 corpses technique, the former could only be said to be difficult at first, and the latter could be said to be difficult at first. It was hard to say which was good and which was bad. It could be said that each had its own merits. Chapter 563. One thing to say was that Xianqing's slashing the past and future technique had absorbed a lot of essence from the slashing 3 corpses technique. The slashing 3 corpses technique created by the Tao ancestor was amazing. It was one of the easiest techniques to achieve the Tao. In addition to the state of mind, the slashing 3 corpses technique could also allow one to have 3 powerful incarnations. What was even more amazing was that with these 3 powerful incarnations, one could save a lot of time to break through to the primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. One had to know that in order to break through to the primordial chaos Dao realm, one had to have enough origin to support them. Just like demon god Jidu, although he had reached the realm, his innate origin was insufficient. He was still not considered a primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian, and the 3 corpses were used to increase the origin. When the 3 corpses were combined, one would become a primordial chaos cultivator. With the origin contained in these 3 powerful incarnations, a cultivator could become a primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian as quickly as possible. Xianqing planned to absorb this advantage. To be precise, Xianqing did not change the slashing 3 corpses technique passed down by the Dao ancestor much. He replaced the 3 corpses of good and evil with the past, future, and present. The rest was basically unchanged. With an idea in mind, Xianqing directly deduced this technique with the Hongmeng Daozhong. It's time to break through. Xianqing stood up silently and took out the 12th grade green lotus of creation and the 12th grade white lotus of purification. The slashing 3 corpses technique required a connate numinous treasure. The slashing past and future technique was born from this technique, so it naturally required a connate numinous treasure. Moreover, this connate numinous treasure could not be chosen casually. It was related to his future path of Dao, so he had to be careful. It was best if it was a connate numinous treasure that was compatible with his Dao. Xianqing's choice was the green lotus of creation. Although this treasure had the word creation, it was inextricably related to the chaos and could be compatible with all the Dao in the world. It was perfect to use it as a sustenance. Moreover, Xianqing had other thoughts about using the green lotus of creation as a sustenance. Now he had obtained 2 of the 4 connate lotus of the primordial world. Together with the green lotus of creation that was not among them, there were 3 of them. The 3 natural lotus flowers came from the same source, and they were all top-notch natural spirit treasures. Once they fused into one, they would directly become a natural cardinal treasure, and their level wouldn't be too low. Furthermore, to a certain extent, the Chaos Green Lotus was also considered a heaven-splitting holy artifact. Its contribution to the primordial world was not much lower than the heaven-splitting axe. According to this, the Green Lotus of creation, which represented part of the chaotic Green Lotus origin, could also be considered a heaven-opening treasure in a sense. Even if it wasn't as good as the 3 supreme treasures of heaven-splitting, it wasn't far off. In other words, Xianqing could have a connate cardinal treasure at any time, and it would be a connate cardinal treasure that could rival the 3 heaven-opening cardinal treasures. Think about it. In the future, Xianqing stood on the green lotus of good fortune. It was equivalent to being in an invincible position. Almost no one in the great desolate world could break the defense of the creation green lotus. Its defense was even stronger than the heaven-earth mysterious yellow pagoda. With this supreme treasure, Xianqing could be said to have no worries. Wasn't that a beautiful scene? It was simply too beautiful. However, Xianqing did not dare to let the green lotus of creation become an innate cardinal treasure. Because it was too strong, there was only so much luck to open heaven, and it had already been divided by the 3 heaven-opening cardinal treasures. In addition to some scattered connate treasures, the remaining luck to open heaven was gone. If Xianqing created another heaven-opening cardinal treasure, not to mention whether the heavenly Tao would agree, even the 3 pure ones would not agree. If the heaven-opening cardinal treasure appeared, where would the luck to open heaven come from? Naturally, it would be split from the 3 heaven-opening cardinal treasures. For no reason, the 3 heaven-opening cardinal treasures became 4 heaven-opening cardinal treasures. How could the owner be willing to give away some luck for nothing? Of course not. If it was Fengzichen, he would not be willing either. Therefore, once the connate cardinal treasure level green lotus of creation appeared, the Grand Pure One and Jade Pure One would definitely sense it and want to destroy this treasure. Even the Grand Pure One would probably take action. For no other reason than the Qingping sword, they had to take action. The Tao corroboration treasures of the three Pure Ones were all formed by the green lotus of creation and were naturally restrained by it. As a saint, how could he tolerate the existence of something that restrained him? Naturally, he would think of ways to destroy it. Even the owner of this treasure, Xianqing, was no exception. Just the three Pure Ones alone were enough to give people a headache, let alone the heavenly Tao that could not tolerate the existence of the green lotus of creation. No one could withstand that. Therefore, even if the heavenly Tao and the three Pure Ones were not in the primordial world, Xianqing did not dare to fuse with the three lotuses and advance the green lotus of creation to a connate cardinal treasure. This treasure was a disaster. Once it appeared, it would definitely attract the hostility of the heavenly Tao and the three Pure Ones. Therefore, to be safe, it was better not to let it be born. However, Xianqing was vaguely unwilling. The connate cardinal treasure was right in front of him, but he could not take it out due to various concerns. It was really torturous. Left with no choice, Xianqing thought of a solution that was not a solution. That was to use the green lotus of creation as a sustenance and use its origin to cut off the past, future, and present. Even if it was a connate cardinal treasure, after being slashed 3 times, it could not retain its original grade. This way, although Xianqing did not obtain a connate cardinal treasure, he had 3 powerful incarnations. Moreover, after Xianqing broke through to become primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian, the 3 incarnations could merge and directly obtain the connate cardinal creation green lotus of creation. At that time, Xianqing would control the green lotus of creation with his primordial chaos power. He would not have so many concerns. Xianqing took action as soon as he thought of it. He raised the Hongming Daozhong and directly kept the green lotus of creation and the white lotus of purification. After that, Xianqing also entered the Hongming Daozhong. The Hongming Daozhong isolated everything. What was done inside could not be seen by the outside world. Inside the Hongming Daozhong, in the boundless purple space, 3 huge lotus flowers stood tall. One was green, one was white, and one was black. Each of them emitted a bright Tao light. They were the 12th grade green lotus of creation, the 12th grade black lotus of destruction, and the 12th grade white lotus of purification. Green lotus of creation, rise. After coming to the purple space, Xianqing directly raised the 12th grade green lotus of creation and let it devour the other 2 connate lotus flowers. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh! Thick roots stretched out from the roots of the green lotus of creation and swept toward the black lotus of destruction and the white lotus of purification. The black lotus of destruction and the white lotus of purification sensed the danger and instinctively wanted to resist. But Xianqing's reaction was faster. He directly attacked and suppressed the 2 connate lotus flowers together with the green lotus of creation. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The white lotus of purification and the black lotus of destruction were entangled by the roots of the green lotus of creation and let out an unwilling buzzing sound. But unfortunately, in the face of Xianqing's suppression, they were powerless to resist. They could only watch as their connate origins were lost little by little. Whoosh, 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 as the green lotus of creation devoured the connate origins of the black lotus of destruction and the black lotus of purification. It shook excitedly and revealed a joyful mood. As time passed, the Tao light on the black lotus of destruction and the white lotus of purification became dimmer and dimmer. On the other hand, the Tao light on the green lotus of creation became more and more dazzling. Poof! An extra petal appeared on the green lotus of creation, and it became a 13th grade lotus flower. On the other hand, The black lotus of destruction and the white lotus of purification each lost a petal. Very good. Seeing this scene, Xianqing nodded his head in satisfaction. He then closed his eyes and his mind gradually sank into the river of time and space. He began to search for his shadow of the past. The first thing to be cut was the past. Standing on the river of time and space, Xianqing looked back and saw everything that he had experienced since he was born. All of it appeared before his eyes. Then Xianqing looked at the future and saw countless images coming to him, explaining the various possibilities of the future for him. Finally, Xianqing lowered his head and looked at the river of time and space. His appearance was clearly reflected in it. This was the present. Cut! Xianqing formed a sword with his fingers and gently waved it behind him. Suddenly, the countless memories were all shattered and turned into a figure that was identical to Xianqing and appeared in front of him. After that, Xianqing did not stop. He continued to form a sword with his fingers and slashed at his feet. Bang! The calm water surface. Suddenly, layers of ripples appeared. A figure slowly emerged from the water surface and stood behind Xianqing. One was the past, and the other was the present. In a few breaths, Xianqing had cut off 2 corpses and entered the late stage of sage to be. With his half-step primordial chaos, it was naturally not difficult to cut off the 2 corpses. However, it was a little troublesome to cut off the future. The future was ethereal and unpredictable. If he wanted to cut it off, he would need some opportunities. However, Xianqing was already very satisfied with cutting off 2 corpses. With his identity, cutting off 2 corpses was just right. If he went any further, it would be a little eye-catching. His mind left the river of time and space, and Xianqing looked at the creation green lotus. At this time, it had already bloomed to the 18th grade. His body was surrounded by thick connate Taoist rhymes and exuded the unique pressure of a connate cardinal treasure. The connate cardinal treasure, the 18th grade creation green lotus. Cut! Seeing this, Xianqing used the shadow of the past as a blade and slashed at the 18th grade creation green lotus. Whoosh! An invisible blade slashed past, and the 18th grade creation green lotus lost 6 grades and turned back into a 12th grade creation green lotus. After the 6 petals spun in the air for a while, they suddenly turned into a man in green who looked 80% similar to Xianqing. At the same time, a 12th grade creation green lotus bloomed slowly on top of his head, exuding the pressure of a top grade connate spiritual treasure. This was Xianqing's past body. Poor Wei Green Lotus, greetings to me. Green Lotus stepped forward and bowed to Xianqing. Xianqing nodded and kept it in the human flower, using his own great Tao to improve his cultivation. The past body had just been born. However, with Daluo Jinxian's cultivation, improving his cultivation was the main goal now. Otherwise, it would be difficult to use it. After that, Xianqing began to close his eyes and rest. Condensing the past body had consumed a lot of his mind. Next, there was still a present body to condense. If he did not recover quickly, it would be a little funny if he could not cut out the incarnation. In the blink of an eye, several years had passed. The 12th grade creation green lotus had transformed into the 18th grade again. The 12th grade white lotus of purification and the 12th grade black lotus of destruction had been completely devoured by the creation green lotus, and there was no trace of their existence. In this regard, Xianqing did not feel that it was a pity. Using 2 supreme grade connate spiritual treasures to exchange for a powerful connate cardinal treasure was not a loss. Cut! With a thought, Xianqing used his present body as a blade and slashed again. Whoosh! The 18th grade creation green lotus returned to the 12th grade. The 6 petals that had been cut off turned into Xianqing's present body. Yes, his aura, appearance, strength, and so on were exactly the same as his past body. It was just a little more mature. Of course, He was more mature now than before. At this point, Xianqing's breakthrough this time was over. The black lotus of destruction and the black lotus of purification disappeared and turned into two creation green lotuses. This did not mean that their abilities had disappeared. Compared to the Khanate 4 Great Lotus seats and the Khanate 5 Elements flag, the creation green lotus was the legitimate son of the chaos green lotus and had inherited everything. In other words, the creation green lotus could use all their abilities. Clang! As Xianqing completed his breakthrough, the Hongmeng Daozhong broke through the void and quietly returned to Feng Zichen's hand. The realm of the late stage of the Sage-to-Be realm has barely touched the threshold of the Great Medium. In the untainted land, it is considered a moderate master. Xianqing said with a smile after testing his skyrocketing strength. Only when one's strength reached this level could he be considered to have squeezed into the top level of the untainted land. He was no longer a chess piece and had the qualifications to play chess. In the untainted land, those in the early and middle stages of the Sage-to-Be realm were called Great Medium. Those in the late stage of the Sage-to-Be realm and above were called Great Medium. Those who had just entered the Sage-to-Be realm were at the early stage of the Sage-to-Be realm. Killing one corpse was at the middle stage of the Sage-to-Be realm. Killing 2 corpses was at the late stage of the Sage-to-Be realm. Killing 3 corpses was at the peak of the Sage-to-Be realm. The 3 corpses were connected and were half-step to the primordial chaos. When the 3 corpses were combined, one could achieve the Tao and become the primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. I finally deduced it. Under the Tree of World. Feng Zichen let out a long sigh of relief. He, who was in charge of guarding the Tree of World, was not idle when others were busy. He was deducing the blood altar. With the help of the Tree of World, the Creation Jade Disc Fragment, and the Hongmeng Daozhong, Feng Zichen spent 1,000 years and finally deduced the blood altar, which could be said to be in defiance of the natural order. It was not easy to say that the appearance of this divine power was really not easy. The Tree of World was called the first spiritual root in the untainted land and had supreme mystery. It was easier to get close to the Great Medium if one cultivated under the tree. The Creation Jade Disc was known as the origin of all Daos. The Hongmeng Daozhong could improve one's comprehension. With the power of these 3, coupled with Feng Zichen's identity as the great Taoist priest, it was not an exaggeration to say that his comprehension was the best in the untainted land. Even the Tao ancestor could not compare to him. Even so, Feng Zichen had experienced several failures before he deduced it. It could be seen how difficult it was. That was true, bringing the dead back to life. It was against the laws of the heavenly Tao and was destined to be tolerated by heaven and earth. Note, the dead here refers to the kind whose true spirit is broken, not the kind whose soul has entered the cycle of reincarnation. Logically speaking, the blood sacrificial altar shouldn't exist. Even if it appeared, it would be destroyed by the heavenly Tao immediately. However, Feng Zichen chose a good time. In the current untainted land, even the chaos-fiend god dared to swagger around. What was one more heaven-defying technique? Of course, in order to prevent the heavenly Tao from settling scores when it returned to the untainted land, the blood altar would be erased from the world. Feng Zichen still had to add insurance to the blood altar so that the heavenly Tao would recognize the existence of this technique. Chapter 564. Feng Zichen also had a countermeasure. It was actually very simple to let the blood altar be recognized by the heavenly Tao. That was to let the blood altar appear and benefit the primordial world. In the vast primordial world, as long as it was something beneficial to the primordial world, regardless of whether it was good or evil, heaven-defying or not, it would definitely be protected by the heavenly Tao. Therefore, as long as the blood altar appeared and could benefit the primordial world, the heavenly Tao would not care about its heaven-defying nature. To the heavenly Tao, the most important thing was to think of all ways to increase the origin of the primordial world. His actions in the primordial world were all based on this. For this, he could sacrifice everything. He could even tolerate the chaos fiend god, so what was a small blood altar? As for how to make the blood altar a treasure that was beneficial to the primordial world, Feng Zichen already had a plan in his heart. The altar had the intention to communicate with the world. According to Feng Zichen's plan, he would first use the blood altar to communicate with the world and then offer enough sacrifices. A portion of it would be used to give back to the world, and a portion would be used to summon the dead. In this way, the world would benefit and would not care about the resurrection of the dead. Without the obstruction of the heavenly Tao, the blood altar could successfully summon the dead. Simply put, this was a bribe to get the world to let go. This method could be said to be a win-win situation. The heavenly Tao had no reason to reject it. However, there was one thing that was more difficult. It was how to choose the sacrifice to the world. Since it was a sacrifice to the world, it definitely could not be an ordinary item. It had to be a spiritual item that could increase the origin of the world. Otherwise, if you offered the sacrifice, but the heavenly Tao did not obtain any benefits, it would be strange if it did not kill you. Moreover, the sacrifice could not be a spiritual item in the primordial world. That was because everything in the primordial world belonged to the heavenly Tao. You sacrificed the heavenly Tao's own things to the heavenly Tao and still wanted to obtain benefits. Wasn't this a joke? The heavenly Tao was really easy to talk to. Bribery was also a skill. It had to be catered to. In particular, the one to bribe was the heavenly Tao. He had to study it carefully. Otherwise, if something went wrong, he would really die. The heavenly Tao. Since spiritual items from the great desolate world were not enough, he could only start from the outer realm. There were treasures everywhere in the great chaos. Even the chaotic chi that could be seen everywhere was considered a good treasure in the untainted land. If Feng Zichen could calm down and go to the great chaos to collect tens of thousands of years of chaos chi, it would be enough to offer it to the heavenly Tao. With this as a sacrifice, he would be able to summon at least one Daluo Jinxian through the blood altar. However, that was in the past. The current primordial world had ready-made offerings. There were so many Xiantian ferocious beasts. Weren't they living sacrifices? Khanate ferocious beasts were the result of the fusion of the chaos fiend god's remnants, the origin of chaos, and a part of the chaos fiend chi. It did not belong to the primordial world. Therefore, they could be used as sacrifices to the heavenly Tao to strengthen the origin of heaven and earth. Xiantian realm ferocious beasts were not simple. When they were alive, they took it as their duty to destroy the primordial world. When they died, they would not let go of the primordial world. After they died, the chaotic chi on their bodies did not dissipate. Instead, it slowly spread out and eroded the surrounding spiritual veins and earth chi. It destroyed the surrounding life force and turned it into a dangerous place. It was really sinister. Feng Zichen discovered that by chance. Originally, Feng Zichen thought that this batch of Xiantian realm ferocious beasts would be the same as the previous ones. After they died, their origins would slowly dissipate and gradually integrate into heaven and earth to strengthen the origin of the primordial world. However, tens of thousands of years later, Feng Zichen suddenly realized that something was wrong. Not only did the spiritual chi in the primordial world not increase, but it was gradually decreasing. That was unreasonable. It was very unreasonable. That was because, logically speaking, after years of war, many Xiantian realm ferocious beasts had died, and the cultivators of the 10,000 races had suffered heavy casualties. After tens of thousands of years, their origins should have merged with the primordial world. Therefore, the spiritual chi in the primordial world should have increased. However, the strange thing was, the spiritual chi did not increase but decreased. It would be strange if there was no problem. So many living beings had died in the primordial world. It was impossible for their origins to disappear for no reason. After every great calamity, the primordial world would usher in a flourishing age of cultivation. It was because hundreds of millions of living beings had died and their origins had returned to heaven and earth, causing the origin of the primordial world to increase greatly and benefit the countless living beings who were still alive. In the current situation, someone must be up to no good. In the beginning, Feng Zichen thought that it was the demon sect who was secretly playing tricks, intercepting the origin that should have returned to heaven and earth to plot something big. However, after careful observation, he realized that this matter had nothing to do with the demon sect. It was the fault of the Xiantian realm ferocious beasts. After they died, the Xiantian realm ferocious qi did not disappear and continued to destroy the spiritual veins of the primordial world. The reason why no one noticed this was that a large number of living beings had died. Their origins had returned to heaven and earth, making up for the loss of the primordial world and covering up this point. It was not until tens of thousands of years later that Feng Zichen suddenly realized that something was wrong. Only then did he understand the truth. Xiantian realm ferocious beasts. They really did not let people rest in peace, even after they died. However, thinking about it, the Chaos Fiend God was not a fool. They had sent the Xiantian realm ferocious beasts to the primordial world. Obviously, they were not airdropping resources to the primordial world, but to destroy the primordial world. If the Xiantian realm ferocious beasts died and their origins merged into the primordial world, wouldn't the actions of the Chaos Fiend God be meaningless? Therefore, they would definitely leave a secret hand on the Xiantian realm ferocious beasts to prevent such a thing from happening. After they died, they continued to destroy the primordial world. It was probably the secret hand left behind by the Chaos Fiend God. Since Feng Zichen had discovered this, he could not sit back and watch this situation continue to happen. After the Xiantian realm ferocious beasts died, their origins could not merge into the primordial world, right? That didn't matter. If you can't do it, I'll help you. The blood altar existed for this reason. It was equivalent to a converter, transforming the origins of the Xiantian realm ferocious beasts into the origins that were most suitable for heaven and earth to absorb, using the flesh and blood of the Xiantian realm ferocious beasts to build the blood altar, and then using their origins as a sacrifice to the heavenly Tao to revive the experts who had fallen in the primordial world. This method was really making the best use of everything. In an instant, waste was turned into treasure, and the Xiantian realm ferocious beasts became delicious cakes. With a thought, Feng Zichen passed the refining method of the blood altar that he had deduced to the incarnation of the Gaochen and asked him to bring the demon god flag to find Fuxi. In the nether realm, the Gaochen had just received the demon god flag from the ghost emperor Fengdu when he received the message from Feng Zichen. He did not have time to pay his respects to goddess Hutu and hurriedly left the nether realm to go to the ancestral land of the human race to find Fuxi. If he wanted to refine the blood altar as quickly as possible, he had to get Fuxi's help. After all, Fuxi now controlled the most powerful force in the primordial world. With his help, he could save a lot of time. Moreover, he could use the opportunity of refining the blood altar to kill the Xiantian realm ferocious beasts that were causing chaos in the primordial world and completely quell the chaos. Fellow Taoist Fuxi, I haven't seen you for many years. You've become more and more majestic. In the human emperor's palace, the Gaochen looked at Fuxi in front of him and could not help but say, although Fuxi's cultivation level was lower than his, the Gaochen vaguely felt suppressed by his aura when standing in front of him. Of course, this was also because the Gaochen deliberately suppressed the emperor's aura in his body. However, even so, it was enough to show how extraordinary Fuxi was. This meant that although Fuxi's cultivation level was only at the great perfection of the quasi-saint realm, his combat strength had reached the half-step primordial chaos level. And these were the benefits brought by being respected by all races. The strengthening of the power of all races made Fuxi's majesty even more profound. He was much more powerful than when Feng Zichen was the human emperor. Even when Fuxi was Emperor Shi in the demon race's heavenly court, He did not have such a scene today. He had surpassed the past and achieved something that he did not achieve in his previous life. Not to mention other things. Just Fushi's majesty was enough to make ordinary quasi-saints not dare to attack him. From this, one could see how profound his majesty was. This was the scene of becoming an emperor. If Fushi gained more prestige in the primordial world, he might be able to directly ascend to the position of emperor. Your Majesty is too kind. It's all thanks to your Majesty that Fushi can have today. If your Majesty had not given me the human Tao imperial seal, I would have died in the mouth of a connate ferocious beast, let alone command all races and unify the primordial world. Fushi bowed respectfully to Feng Zichen and said gratefully, he was telling the truth. If not for the human Tao imperial seal, he would have died long ago. Even if he was fine, he would not be a match for a connate ferocious beast. You, shaking his head, Feng Zichen was a little speechless. His contribution was not as great as Fushi said. Even if he did not make a move that day, Fushi would be fine. How could a person of destiny die so easily? If Feng Zichen did not save him, there would be others who would. Moreover, Fushi could have today mostly because of his own ability. Otherwise, do you think anyone with a connate cardinal treasure would be able to create such a situation? The human Tao imperial seal indeed had an indelible contribution to Fushi's current status. However, it would be a little too much to say that it was all his credit. Feng Zichen naturally understood this point. All right, I came to see you today, not to catch up with you, but to ask for your help. After cutting off his messy thoughts, Feng Zichen said to Fushi with a solemn expression, Please speak, your Majesty. As long as Fushi can do it, I will not refuse. Seeing that Feng Zichen was talking about serious matters, Fushi also became serious and promised him. It's not a difficult matter. Next, Feng Zichen told Fushi about the blood altar and the plan to lure the connate ferocious beast with the demon god flag. Blood altar. Bring the dead back to life? Demon god flag. It can lure connate ferocious beasts? After hearing Feng Zichen's words, Fushi fell into a great shock. With the memories of his 2 lives, he had never seen such a mysterious magic and magic treasure. He could still understand luring connate ferocious beasts. However, the magic that could bring the dead back to life, which obviously violated the rules of the way of heaven, was said by Feng Zichen so openly. He could not understand. This kind of magic was really too heaven-defying. How could the way of heaven allow his existence? That was to say, the way of heaven was not in the primordial world now. Otherwise, based on what Feng Zichen had said just now, the way of heaven could directly strike down a bolt of purple heaven divine thunder and erase all his memories of the blood altar. Why, you don't believe me? Seeing Fushi's face full of disbelief, Feng Zichen smiled proudly and then explained the principle to him. Deducing the blood altar was another great feat of Feng Zichen after he established the connate sword principle. He could not help but have some thoughts of showing off. This method was really too heaven-defying. It was equivalent to giving Daluo Jinxian an extra life. If it really spread in the primordial world, the impact would be far-reaching. It would be enough to subvert everyone's understanding and make the chaotic future even more chaotic. Perhaps the structure of the primordial world would be changed. Even the birth of the connate sword principle would not have as great an impact as the appearance of the blood altar. After all, the connate sword principle was only used at the bottom of the primordial world. To the upper echelons of the primordial world, it was dispensable. However, the blood altar was different. Its main target was the upper echelons of the primordial world. In this day and age, other than saints, who dared to guarantee that they would never die, didn't you see that the invincible Dong Huang Tai still died? With the blood altar, they would have an extra way out. When they started, they would have more confidence. I see. Your Majesty is really a great talent. He is far from what Fushi can compare to. After hearing Feng Zichen's explanation, Fushi looked at him with admiration. He was convinced. He was really convinced. He could even think of such a method. No wonder he could establish the Khanate sword principle and become the only Taoist priests of the primordial world. Fellow Taoist, do you think this method is feasible? Feng Zichen smiled and asked Fushi. The current blood altar was only perfect in theory. Feng Zichen felt that the blood altar could succeed, but only he felt that it could. As for whether it could really succeed, no one could guarantee it without practice. After all, the theory was perfect. That was only in theory. Only by practicing could one obtain true knowledge. There's no problem in theory. After thinking carefully, Fushi said, according to Feng Zichen's idea, there was no reason for the blood altar to fail. As for whether it can really succeed, won't we know after giving it a try? Both of them were practical people. After thinking about it, they felt that the plan was feasible. Without hesitation, they began to implement it. If there was really a problem with the two of them around, there was no need to be afraid of any trouble. On the contrary, they could deal with it on the spot and find the reason for the problem so that they could further improve the plan. Next, Feng Zichen and Fushi started to get busy. One was exploring the terrain, looking for suitable terrain to set up traps to kill the Khanate ferocious beasts. The other was deducing the formation so that he could increase his killing power to the extreme, so that he could kill the Khanate ferocious beasts faster. In the blink of an eye, the world changed. 10,000 years passed in a blink of an eye. During this period, many major events happened in the untainted land. First of all, there was bad news. In order to practice the formation, Fushi ordered the human clan and the Khanate 10,000 clans to shrink their forces. As a result, the Khanate ferocious beasts became more and more rampant in the untainted land. Even the 4 ferocious beasts that had died long ago were resurrected. They were more powerful than before and had reached the late stage of sage to be. Of course, this was not the worst news. The worst news was that after tens of thousands of years, the battle of possession between the Chaos Fiend God and the great medium of the untainted land had gradually come to an end. As soon as those great medium came out of seclusion, they joined the demon sect. There was no doubt that these great medium of the untainted land were defeated and were successfully possessed by the Chaos Fiend God. Their identities, positions, magic treasures, and so on were all replaced by him. And there were as many as 6 great medium who were replaced by the Chaos Fiend God. This naturally had a great impact on the current situation of the untainted land. At the very least, the strength of the demon sect would increase greatly because of this. No matter what realm those great medium were at before they were possessed by the Chaos Fiend God. Anyway, after they were possessed and integrated with the remaining origin of the Chaos Fiend God, their strength was at least at the realm of primordial Chaos Daluo Jinxian. 6 masters comparable to primordial Chaos Daluo Jinxian joined the demon sect. How much would the strength of the demon sect expand? It was really scary just thinking about it. In this regard, Hao Qian and Lei Zhe could be said to have a deep understanding. Originally, when the two of them joined forces, it could be said that they were suppressing the demon sect, almost pressing the demon sect to the ground. Under their suppression, the demon gate almost planned to go from the light to the dark and hide in the dark again. Fortunately, at the critical moment, 6 Chaos Fiend gods comparable to primordial Chaos Daluo Jinxian arrived. At this time, it could be said that the situation had been reversed in the blink of an eye. Previously, Hao Qian and Lei Zhe were suppressing the demon sect, but now the demon sect was suppressing them. Hao Qian and Lei Zhe were naturally dumbfounded by this. This change came too quickly, so quickly that they didn't even have time to react. The great situation turned into nothing overnight. The grievances in their hearts were simply indescribable. However, even though they were grievances, the two of them weren't fools. Seeing that things couldn't be done, of course, they couldn't foolishly resist the 6 primordial chaos experts of the demon sect. Finding an opportunity, he immediately retreated. In this regard, the 6 chaos fiend gods didn't chase after them, because it was meaningless. When one's strength reached their level, either the difference in strength was too great, or they had set up all kinds of killing methods in advance. Otherwise, if they wanted to leave, they would definitely not be able to stop them. Moreover, in a one-on-one battle, none of the 6 of them was a match for the 2 heaven and earth supremes. If they chased after them, it would be hard to say who would kill who. Therefore, when the 6 primordial chaos experts of the demon sect saw the 2 of them leave, they directly let them go and didn't stop them at all. Of course, since there was bad news, that meant that there was also good news. The good news was that there were only 6 great masters who had been possessed. The remaining great masters were still in a stalemate with the chaos fiend gods. This was really good news. In this battle of possession, the great masters had the home advantage. The longer the battle dragged on, the more advantageous it was for them, and the greater their chances of winning. In other words, at this time the great masters who had not been possessed by the chaos fiend gods had the possibility of being possessed by the chaos fiend gods in the future. Although it was not impossible, it was extremely slim. Chapter 565. Perhaps, after a period of time, those great divines would come out of seclusion one after another. By then, even if Tian Dao and the 6 sages had not returned, the demon sect would not be able to make any waves with their strength. The situation would be completely rewritten. However, all of this was based on the fact that Feng Zichen and the others could block the desperate attacks of the demon sect. Even Feng Zichen could predict the future situation of the untainted land. The demon sect had a deep foundation, so how could they not have predicted it? Therefore, when the experts of the demon sect saw that the situation was reversed, they would either hide again and wait for the future, or they would take advantage of the situation before it was reversed to fight for a bright future. If the demon sect chose the former, it would be fine. If the demon sect chose the latter, then Feng Zichen and the others, who were still active in the untainted land, would definitely be the thorn in the side of the demon sect. They would definitely be destroyed. However, judging from the character of the demon sect, the possibility of choosing the latter was undoubtedly higher. Therefore, the clearer the future situation of the untainted land was, the crazier the demon sect's next actions would be, and the more dangerous the situation of Feng Zichen and the others would be. They would face the terrorist attacks of the demon sect. Of course, in addition to the good news and bad news, there was also a piece of news that was neither good nor bad. That was after Hao Tian escaped from the hands of the 6 primordial chaos experts of the demon sect. He was really angry and wanted to roar to the sky. Coincidentally, at this moment, the 4 ferocious beasts that had just been resurrected passed by this place and bumped into the angry Hao Tian. Then, things were much simpler. Hao Tian, who was already angry, vented all his anger on the 4 ferocious beasts. Now, the 4 ferocious beasts that had just been resurrected had been killed by Hao Tian before they could show their majesty in the untainted land. Although these 4 connate ferocious beasts were the kings of the connate ferocious beasts and had the strength of the great perfection of the sage-to-be. However, Hao Tian had the battle strength of the 5th level of the primordial chaos when he used all his strength. How could the 4 ferocious beasts be his match? It was normal to be beaten to death. It would be abnormal if they could not be killed. It could only be said that the 4 ferocious beasts were unlucky to encounter the furious Hao Tian. However, this was not good news. The fall of the 4 great savage beasts was a heavy blow to the connate-level savage beasts. However, the 4 great ferocious beasts had some of the characteristics of the saints, and they were immortal and indestructible. It wouldn't be long before it would be revived, and it would be even more powerful than before. In other words, the 4 great ferocious beasts could not be killed. They could only be sealed. If he killed them, he would be able to obtain temporary stability, but the consequences would be endless. Therefore, Hao Tian killing the 4 great ferocious beasts was neither good nor bad news. At the very least, after the fall of the four great beasts, the power of the Xian Tian ominous beasts had been weakened to a certain extent. This had bought a little breathing space for all living beings and also facilitated the implementation of Feng Zichen's plan. After all, the four great ferocious beasts were the only ones among the Xian Tian ferocious beasts that possessed intelligence and were born with the ability to control Xian Tian ferocious beasts. If they were allowed to live, half of the demon god flag in Feng Zichen's hands would be wasted, which would cause an inexplicable change in his plan. Therefore, for Feng Zichen, the four great ferocious beasts were bound to die. If he had been by Hao Yian's side at that time, he would definitely have said to Hao Yan, "Well done." Too many things could happen in 10,000 years. Feng Zichen's plan was almost perfect. A suitable area and a powerful Xian Tian formation had been prepared. Now, what was left was to attract the Xian Tian ominous beasts to activate the formation. In the south of the untainted land, in a mysterious canyon, Feng Zichen, Hao Jian, and most of the masters above Daluo Jingxian from the Xian Tian tribes were busy preparing for the next plan to kill the Xian Tian ominous beasts. "Your Majesty, this place is really good." Fuxi looked at the canyon and said to Feng Zichen beside him, "Of course, I searched for tens of thousands of years in the untainted land before I found such a treasure." Feng Zichen said proudly, "This place was hidden and big enough. Moreover, it had all the 5 elements' spiritual meridians and was in harmony with heaven and earth. There was a faint trend of forming a large formation that could accommodate sage-to-be masters to fight. With a little modification, it could become a treasure for evil people. Let's stop chatting. Let's hurry up and set up the formation." Anxious to verify the effect of the blood altar, Feng Zichen did not dare to delay. He hurriedly pulled Fuxi to set up the formation. This time, they were not going to set up the primordial river formation, but the galaxy cosmic light formation. Although the primordial river formation was strong, the galaxy cosmic light formation was obviously more powerful. As for the Dharma treasures, to set up the galaxy cosmic light formation, they were already made. In the past, the Demon Clan had refined 364 cosmic star banners in order to set up the cosmic star formation. In order to refine these cosmic star banners, the Demon Clan had almost exhausted all their resources. Naturally, the effect was also gratifying. Without exception, these cosmic star banners were all postnatal absolute treasures. Moreover, they were all top-notch postnatal absolute treasures. Their power was not inferior to ordinary innate spirit treasures. Because of these cosmic star banners, the Demon Clan had completely mastered Zhouxing and became the second largest clan in the Eldritch world, second only to the Wizard Clan. Hundreds of thousands of years later, the battle between the Liches and the demons broke out. The Zhouxing formation and the 12 divine beings formation cancelled each other out and shattered at the same time. Zhouxing suffered a heavy blow because of this. However, the cosmic star banners on it were preserved because of the protection of the cosmic demon gods. Although they were all injured, they were clearly in a better state than the heavenly stellar cycle. After that, the cosmic demon gods sacrificed themselves and turned into the gate of witchcraft. The cosmic star banners were left in the boundless starry sky. Originally, these cosmic star banners should have been taken away by the 10 great demon gods who were still alive to become the foundation of the Demon Clan. However, the sudden birth of the great Emperor of Ziwei and his near-invincible power shocked everyone in the Eldritch world. As such, the 10 great demon gods did not dare to take away these precious treasures that were related to the fate of the boundless starry sky in front of him. Wouldn't that be forcing him to kill the demons? As such, these cosmic star banners fell into the hands of Feng Zichen. The cosmic star banners contained part of the Zhouxing's origin. Any formation related to Zhouxing could be set up with them. Not only could they be used to set up the cosmic star formation, but they could also be used to set up the cosmic star formation. These 2 supreme formations required the same materials to set up the formations. They both relied on Zhouxing. The only difference was the concept of the Great Path and the path of operation. This created the fundamental difference between the two supreme formations. One by one, the cosmic star banners flew out from Feng Zichen's hands and accurately landed on the ground in a position that corresponded to Zhou position. These cosmic star banners! Beside him, Fuxi, who was helping Feng Zichen set up the cosmic star formation, could not help but reveal a puzzled expression when he saw the cosmic star banners flying out from Feng Zichen's hands. These cosmic star banners were somewhat different from the ones he had seen in the demon race in his previous life. The Khanate spiritual opportunity surged around him. It seemed more mysterious and powerful than before. It did not seem like an acquired item, but more like an Khanate spiritual treasure. It was as if it had been upgraded as a whole. Its quality had increased by a level. Don't worry, Taoist Fuxi. I borrowed these cosmic star banners from Taoist Brother Ziwei. There won't be any problems. Seeing Fuxi's puzzled expression, Feng Zichen turned his head and explained. Ever since the demon race massacred humans, almost all the great divines in the primordial world knew that the great Taoist priests, Feng Zichen, and great Emperor Ziwei were good friends who had fought against the demon race together. With this relationship, there was no problem at all for him to learn the cosmic star formation from great Emperor Ziwei and borrow the cosmic star banners. He did not have to worry about attracting suspicion from others. It was because of this that Feng Zichen dared to use the cosmic star formation without worrying about others suspecting his relationship with great Emperor Ziwei. It was just that it seemed a little strange for him to call himself Taoist brother. It's nothing. It's just that the power of these cosmic star banners seems to be stronger than before. I'm a little curious. Fuxi thought about it and said directly, Oh, Taoist brother, you don't know about this. The original cosmic star banners were severely damaged after the battle with the liches and demons. Some of them can't even be used anymore. For this reason, Taoist Brother Ziwei did not hesitate to refine them again. It's only natural that their quality has improved. Otherwise, how could he be worthy of the price that Taoist Brother Ziwei paid? Feng Zichen explained with a smile. Thinking about the price that he had paid to refine the cosmic star banners, he felt a little heartache. However, the effect was naturally excellent. The power of these cosmic star banners had all improved. Their quality even showed signs of transforming into Khanate spiritual treasures. This was a reversal from an acquired item to an Khanate item. And the reason for all this was that Feng Zichen had inserted all the Khanate star banners into Zhou star core. Zhou was reborn from the destruction, which was equivalent to being reborn. In addition, God Pangu had been breathing in the chaotic qi, which gradually strengthened Zhou origin. This allowed Zhou to be rejuvenated and have the ability to nurture Khanate spiritual treasures. Feng Zichen took advantage of this point and inserted the cosmic star banners into the star core. With the Khanate Taoist rhyme produced by Zhou, he nurtured the cosmic star banners again and achieved the goal of transforming them into Khanate spiritual treasures. Hundreds of thousands of years had passed. Although the cosmic star banners had not completely transformed into Khanate spiritual treasures, their quality had greatly improved. Their power had increased a lot, and they even had a trace of Khanate Taoist rhyme. Now, Feng Zichen took them out to verify the results of the nurturing over the years and see if it was worth his continued investment. If the power of the cosmic star banner satisfied him, he would increase his investment and strive to transform the cosmic star banners into Khanate spiritual treasures as soon as possible. TSK, TSK, TSK. 365 cosmic star banners at the level of Khanate spiritual treasures. That scene was exciting just thinking about it. If they were to operate at full strength, how terrifying would their power be? At the very least, it was stronger than in the hands of the demon clan. Moreover, if all the cosmic star banners in Feng Zichen's hands transformed into Khanate spiritual treasures, He could prove a point to all living beings in the primordial world. He was better than Dijun, he was more outstanding, he was more qualified to become the lord of the boundless starry sky. He could do whatever Dijun could do. What Dijun couldn't do, he could do. The second generation was stronger than the first generation. He could better replace Dijun in the hearts of all living beings. As for how to be stronger than Dijun, Feng Zichen had already done it. When the demon clan ruled the boundless starry sky, they only controlled 364 Zhousing stars. They lacked the crucial Ziwei star. Feng Zichen, on the other hand, controlled all the Zhousing stars and completely unified the boundless starry sky. The 365 main stars of the heavenly cycle all had to listen to his orders. Just this point alone made him stronger than Dijun. The grade of Ziwei is really extraordinary. After a moment of silence, Fuxi praised from the bottom of his heart. The cosmic star banners were jointly refined by him and Dijun. Back then, after they had refined the heavenly cycle star banner, they had tried everything they could but were unable to advance it. At that time, they felt that the cosmic star banners had been deduced to the limit and had reached a point where there was no way to improve it. However, they did not expect to see an even more advanced cosmic star banners from the new lord of the boundless starry sky today. This was undoubtedly a huge blow to Fuxi, because this meant that he was inferior to the other party. If that was not the case, why would the cosmic star banners that could not improve in his hands be improved in the hands of others? This was clearly a sign of inferiority. Of course, I am extremely impressed by Brother Ziwei's wisdom. After hearing Fuxi's praise, Feng Zichen agreed shamelessly. Then Feng Zichen explained the cosmic star banners to Fuxi as he threw in the cosmic star banners. Not long after, the vast cosmic star banners array was formed in the hands of the two. They only needed to wait for Feng Zichen to communicate with Zhousing and attract the power of the stars to activate the array. Your Majesty, the cosmic star banners array has been formed. Should we start the plan and use the demon god flags to summon the innate stage beasts and kill them in one fell swoop? Fuxi said after the array was set up. No rush. This matter is not urgent. Feng Zichen shook his head and said, although the cosmic star banners array is powerful, this place is not the boundless starry sky after all. Without the home advantage, the power of this array cannot be maximized, and we don't know much about the strength of the innate stage beasts. How many beasts are there? How many of them are Daluo Jinxian? How many quasi-sages are there? We have no idea at all. In addition, the demon sect may not stand by and watch if they see us scheming against the innate stage beasts. They might even help. We have to consider all of the above. With that, Feng Zichen turned to look at Fuxi and said seriously, the cosmic star banners array is not enough. So, a single cosmic light formation is completely insufficient. For the sake of safety, we have to set up a few congenital formations to prevent any accidents. Next, I will go to the center of the canyon to set up another supreme formation. Fellow Taoist, you will go to the periphery and set up your primordial chaos river array. There were so many innate stage beasts and they were so strong. How could an imperfect cosmic star banners array be enough? Chapter 566. Perhaps the array would be broken after being attacked a few times by the innate ferocious beasts. He had to be on guard. For this reason, Feng Zichen did not intend to implement the plan with one array from the beginning. He wanted to set up several arrays to form a huge chain array and completely cut off the vitality of the innate ferocious beasts. If he killed the innate ferocious beasts so easily, was he looking down on the demon sect or the chaos demon god? It should be known that the current situation was on the demon sect, not on Feng Zichen. He was going against the general trend, so it was not too much to be careful. Feng Zichen had been winning all the time. That was because he could not afford to lose. The demon sect had the general trend. Even if they lost, they could start again. That was the reason why the demon sect had been suppressed by Feng Zichen and the others, but their power did not weaken. Instead, they became stronger and stronger. That was because they had the general trend. However, if Feng Zichen lost, he would really suffer a crushing defeat and would have no chance to make a comeback. That was the price of going against the general trend. He could only keep moving forward and could not retreat. After instructing Fuxi, Feng Zichen asked him to go to the periphery to set up the array while he walked to the center of the canyon to set up the trump card that he had specially prepared for this plan. The 12 divine beings formation. That's right. It was the number 1 innate array in the primordial world. Feng Zichen planned to set up the 12 divine beings formation in the center of the canyon, in the deepest part of the galaxy of cosmic light array. In this way, even if the galaxy of cosmic light array and the primordial river formation were broken by the innate ferocious beasts, he could still rely on the 12 divine beings formation to make a comeback and kill all the invaders. Since the innate ferocious beasts were afraid of the chaos demon god, they were naturally extremely afraid of Pangu, who made the chaos demon god fear. Feng Zichen did not believe that those innate ferocious beasts could still exert their full strength after sensing Pangu's aura. At the very least, he had to give them a 50% discount. Go! In the center of the canyon, Feng Zichen waved his sleeves, and 12 long banners flew out. They grew in the wind, and in the blink of an eye, they became tens of thousands of feet long. Then they disappeared into the void. These 12 banners were the 12 heavenly god banners. It was because of them that Feng Zichen had the confidence to set up the 12 capital heaven divine fiends formation. Otherwise, did he really think that the number 1 connate formation of the great desolate world was so easy to set up? After the fall of the 12 ancestors of sorcery, even the sorcerer tribe could not set up the 12 capital god banner formation. From this, one could see how difficult it was to set up a formation. The 12 divine beings formation of 12 divine beings was closely related to the 12 grand shamans and was the foundation of the formation. Without the 12 grand sorcerers, there would be no 12 divine beings killing formation. Fortunately, back then, Feng Zichen had specially refined the Dutian divine aura for the 12 ancestors of sorcery, using it as their natal spiritual treasure to carry on their path. After the fall of the 12 ancestors of sorcery, they could set up the 12 capital heaven divine fiends formation again, allowing the number 1 connate formation of the great desolate world to reappear in the world. Back then, when the canopy of heaven was broken, the 12 ancestors of sorcery sacrificed themselves to mend the canopy of heaven. Their origins turned into the gate of sorcery, and they disappeared from the great desolate world. However, as their natal spiritual treasure, the Dutian divine banner was not sacrificed together with them. Instead, it was kept and taken away by Feng Zichen. The function of this treasure was not as simple as setting up the 12 capital heaven divine fiends formation. Its main function was to condense the origins of the 12 ancestors of sorcery to help them revive. The reason why the 12 ancestors of sorcery chose the Dutian divine fiends as their natal spiritual treasure was not only that their attributes were compatible, but more importantly, they had noticed this point. The natal spiritual treasure was so important. If not, why would they choose the Dutian divine banner, which was only a connate magic treasure at that time, as their natal spiritual treasure to carry the great Tao? This time it's settled. Looking at the 12 capital heaven divine banners in the void, Feng Zichen could feel the terrifying power contained in them. He could not help but nod his head in satisfaction. With the 12 capital heaven divine fiends formation, even a master of the origin would lose half his life if he was not careful. He could even be refined to death directly. The number 1 formation in the great desolate world was not a boast. It was built with fresh blood. After doing all this, Feng Zichen turned and left. He went to the periphery of the canyon to help Fuxi set up the Hunyuan River formation. Setting up the 12 capital heaven divine fiends formation was not as complicated as setting up the galaxy cosmic light formation. He only needed to throw out the 12 capital heaven divine banners, and they could form the formation spontaneously. The function of the capital heaven divine banner was like a formation plate. It was very convenient to use. Therefore, he did not spend much time setting up the 12 capital heaven divine fiends formation. Of course, such a precious treasure fell into the hands of Feng Zichen. He was not completely free of cost. Since he used the 12 capital heaven divine banners, he had to bear the corresponding karma and try his best to revive the 12 ancestors of sorcery. In this regard, Feng Zichen was happy to see it happen. The 12 ancestors of sorcery were his most solid allies. They had helped him a lot on the path of cultivation. Even without the capital heaven divine banner, Feng Zichen would revive them after the human clan stabilized their position as the protagonist of heaven and earth. This time, setting up a trap to kill the Khanate ferocious beasts. This was an opportunity. Feeding a portion of the Khanate ferocious beasts' flesh and blood essence to the 12 capital heaven divine banners. Although it could not make the 12 ancestors of sorcery return, it could greatly shorten their resurrection time. Time flowed like water. Unknowingly, 1,000 years had passed. On this day, Feng Zichen and Fuxi stood at the top of the canyon and quietly looked at the great, desolate world. The plan to trap and kill the Khanate ferocious beasts was about to begin. The two of them seized the opportunity and jointly raised the demon god flag, activating its power to the limit. Rumble. In an instant, a supreme majesty that belonged to the chaos demon god spread out from the demon god flag and swept across the entire great, desolate world. Roar, roar, roar. Under the supreme majesty of the chaos demon god, most of the Khanate ferocious beasts seemed to have encountered an extremely terrifying existence. They could not help but crawl on the ground and roar in horror. At this time, not to mention the Khanate ferocious beasts, even the living beings in the great, desolate world were shocked by the sudden appearance of the demon god's aura. They could not help but look around in horror, looking for the source of the change. At the same time in the demon sect, this aura, what a familiar feeling, just like the demon god flag. After sensing this majesty, the experts of the demon sect were first shocked, then puzzled. In the end, their faces could not help but change drastically as they recognized the origin of the demon god flag. Oh no! Someone wants to use the demon god flag to lure and kill the Khanate ferocious beasts. Go and destroy this treasure quickly. In a flash, the experts of the demon sect had already realized what had happened and guessed Feng Zichen's plan. Almost without any hesitation, several experts of the primordial chaos and several experts of the half-step primordial chaos broke through the space and rushed toward Feng Zichen and Fuxi. On the other side, Hao Tianyao Qi and the others were also shocked by the sudden appearance of the demon god's aura. However, before he could react, Lei Zhe, who was beside him, grabbed him and flew in the direction of the canyon. If the primordial chaos experts of the demon sect attacked together, the three formations in the canyon alone would not be able to stop them. Therefore, Feng Zichen also needed some help, and Hao Yan was the best helper. Apart from the Tao ancestor, demon ancestor, saint, and the others, Hao Chen's fifth-level primordial chaos realm was the highest in the great desolate world. With his help, it was enough to hold back two primordial chaos experts of the demon sect. With the help of Gao Chen, he could block 4 primordial chaos experts. Perhaps he could block 5 primordial chaos experts of the demon sect. After all, when the supremes of heaven and earth joined forces, it was not as simple as 1 + 1. It was summoning the mighty power of a true celestial emperor. The more supremes of heaven and earth there were, the more powerful they were. If the 5 supremes of heaven and earth came together, almost no one in the great desolate world could defeat them. When the primordial chaos experts of the demon sect rushed over, Feng Zichen and Fuxi were still activating the demon god flag, trying their best to spread its power to every corner of the great, desolate world, so as to affect more connate ferocious beasts as much as possible. Hiss, 3 Tao Lords. Where did the demon sect get so many Tao Lords? Note, Tai Jinxian is a Tao Lord, Daluo Jinxian is a Taoist priest, and Primordial Chaos Daluo Jinxian is a Tao Lord. Seeing the 3 primordial chaos experts of the demon sect outside the canyon, Fuxi could not help but gasp. How could he fight 3 primordial chaos Tao masters? Ever since he reincarnated, Fuxi had first trained in the human race. Later, he had been competing with the 10,000 races of the great desolate world. And these forces belonged to the middle and bottom of the great desolate world, because he had been dealing with them all year round, and his strength had not recovered to its peak. Fuxi had never stepped into the top circle of the great desolate world. This also caused Fuxi to gradually fall out of touch with the times. He did not know much about the changes in the great desolate world in recent years. For example, his impression of the great desolate world was still the ancient lich demon era. At that time, the great perfection of the sage-to-be was the peak. Half-step primordial chaos could transcend the world. As for primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian, in Fuxi's heart he was still an extremely rare existence. However, he did not know that during the years he was struggling at the bottom, the great desolate world had undergone earth-shaking changes. Over the years, there were not many experts of the primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian realm. However, there were many experts whose combat strength had reached the primordial chaos realm. In short, the times had changed. Now, it was no longer the time when the great perfection of the sage-to-be could dominate the great desolate world. Now, if one wanted to shake the great desolate world, one's combat strength had to at least reach the primordial chaos realm. 3 primordial chaos Tao masters? It seems that the demon sect takes this matter seriously. With a glance, Feng Zichen saw that the demon sect had sent 3 primordial chaos Tao masters. He frowned slightly but did not pay too much attention to it. Although the 3 primordial chaos Tao masters were strong, if only 3 of them came, they would not be a match for Hao Tian and Lei Zhe. If this was the great chaos outside the realm, the 3 primordial chaos Tao masters could kill Hao Tian and Lei Zhe in one move. However, this was the great desolate world. Hao Tian and Lei Zhe were the supreme beings of heaven and earth. They had the home advantage and could be supported by the power of heaven and earth. Naturally, they were qualified to not take them seriously. Your Majesty, should we activate the array? Seeing that the 3 demon sect masters had entered the canyon and were rushing here quickly, Fuxi hurriedly asked Feng Zichen. If they did not act now, it would be too late. However, Fuxi was also a little worried. Could the array they had set up really stop the 3 primordial chaos Tao masters? They were the primordial chaos Tao masters, existences who could fight against saints. It's okay. Just focus on activating the demon god flag. There's no need to activate the array, and there's no need to worry about them. If they can't come over, someone will deal with them. Fuxi was extremely anxious, but Feng Zichen said indifferently, "Who is so strong that he can deal with the 3 primordial chaos Tao masters?" Hearing this, Fuxi was a little puzzled and shocked. The great desolate world. There were actually other primordial chaos experts. Why had he never heard of them before? TSK. He had been developing the human race in peace all these years. What exactly happened in the great desolate world? Why were there suddenly so many experts? Was this still the great desolate world that he was familiar with? Why were primordial chaos experts so worthless all of a sudden? They appeared like connate spirit treasures. Just as Fuxi was feeling puzzled, Hao Tian and Lei Zhe arrived. At this moment, at the peak of the canyon, there were 2 forces. On one side were Feng Zichen and Fuxi. On the other side were the three primordial chaos Tao masters of the demon sect. It was easy to distinguish who was a friend and who was an enemy. Although he did not know what Feng Zichen was doing, the situation at the scene was very obvious. The demon sect wanted to stop Feng Zichen's actions. Then things would be much simpler. I'll destroy everything that the demon sect wants to do, but I can't make them do as they wish. With this thought in mind, Hao Tian made his move. Kill. The word kill revealed Hao Tian's determination to kill. He used a killing move. The shadow of the primordial pagoda of Mi Luo Heaven descended from the sky. It suppressed the three Tao masters of the demon sect. You're courting death. Sensing the danger, the three demons hurriedly turned around and used their supreme divine abilities to attack the shadow of the primordial pagoda of Mi Luo Heaven. Boom! Terrifying fluctuations erupted. The shadow of the primordial pagoda of Mi Luo Heaven was shattered by the supreme divine abilities of the three demons. Its remaining power was not extinguished and swept towards Hao Tian in a mighty manner. Demon, don't be arrogant. It was also at this moment that Lei Zhe's attack arrived. Terrifying tribulation lights shot out, destroying everything and shattering the aftermath of the divine abilities that surged towards Hao Tian. Just like that, the five of them began to fight in the void. Hao Tian and Lei Zhe were fighting 2 against 3, but they were still not at a disadvantage. They were even showing signs of suppressing the 3 demons. This forced the 3 demons to use all their strength to deal with it. They did not have any extra strength to destroy the demon god flag. That's Hao Tian. On the side, Fuxi looked at Hao Tian, who was unleashing his divine power, and said in disbelief. He did not know Lei Zhe, but how could he not know Hao Tian? This was too exaggerated. Who would have thought that a boy that no one cared about back then would be able to suppress the primordial chaos Tao master today? It was too unbelievable. What's there to be shocked about? No matter what, Hao Tian is the heavenly emperor personally conferred by the Tao ancestor. He has the support of the myriad Tao of heaven and earth. If he can't even suppress a 3rd level primordial chaos Tao master, then it's meaningless for him to be the heavenly emperor. Shaking his head and smiling, Feng Zichen explained to Fuxi. That's true. At this moment, Fuxi also noticed that although Hao Tian had the power to suppress the primordial chaos Tao master, his cultivation was still at the perfected sage-to-be. Chapter 567. Obviously, the power he had now was not from his own hard work, but from external forces. In this way, although it was still shocking, it was not so difficult to accept. Well, let's leave them alone. The power of the demon god flag is about to reach its limit, and it will soon attract the primordial ferocious beasts. That's what we should pay attention to. Just as Feng Zichen and Fuxi were talking, a loud roar came from the demon god flag. Then a horrible demon god's shadow gradually materialized and appeared above the demon god flag. Fear, great fear. The full power of the demon god flag was equivalent to the arrival of a complete chaos demon god. It was easy to imagine the impact it would bring to the untainted land. In an instant, the world darkened, and an indescribable oppression filled the world and attacked the hearts of all living beings. The power of the demon god was so vast and mighty that it appeared in the hearts of all living beings like a shadow. It was so oppressive that they could not speak. The world lost its sound and fell into absolute silence. In this absolute silence, Feng Zichen made his move. Start. He made a series of gestures with his hands and used his supreme divine sense to manipulate the demon god shadow that had just appeared on the demon god flag to attract the endless primordial ferocious beasts in the untainted land. After Feng Zichen sent the seal into the demon god flag, the aura of the demon god's shadow gradually changed. It was no longer as oppressive as before. Instead, it emitted an indescribable fluctuation. Roar, roar, roar! The next moment, the demon god's shadow moved and let out a loud roar. Layers of ripples appeared in the void and spread in all directions, gradually affecting the whole untainted land. As the ripples spread, all the primordial ferocious beasts in the vicinity of the ripples seemed to have lost their minds and quickly ran toward the canyon. It was as if an invisible hand was manipulating them and making them converge in the direction of the demon god flag. Before long, the primordial ferocious beasts near the canyon had rushed over and were desperately rushing toward the demon god flag, where Feng Zichen and Fushi were. Humph! Feng Zichen did not activate the formation, but snorted coldly. Boom! The void trembled as invisible ripples spread out. Those connate ferocious beasts that were rushing over were instantly turned into blood mist before they could even react. The power of a single snort was terrifying. How could mere connate ferocious beasts be a match for Feng Zichen, no matter how many of them there were? It could be said that as long as Feng Zichen wanted, he could kill all the primordial ferocious beasts in the untainted land in an instant. The might of primordial chaos was just that terrifying. This was a power that surpassed the laws. It was a power that truly belonged to the Tao. It was capable of wiping out the enemy in terms of concept and cognition. If one's strength did not reach this level, it would be very difficult to resist. The strongest connate ferocious beasts were only half-step primordial chaos. How could they resist this power? One had to know that Feng Zichen was not the only primordial chaos expert on his side. If the few of them attacked together, the Xiantian ferocious beasts that roamed the desolate wilderness would definitely not be able to survive. But in this way, the price they had to pay was too great. It was very likely that all living beings in the primordial world would be buried with the connate ferocious beasts. The primordial world was not the great chaos of the outer realm. It had rules and a bottom line. No matter how experts fought, it would not be too much. However, if they attacked the low-level cultivators of the enemy, it would be a huge taboo. It would be easy to force the other party to fight to the death. Think about it. Feng Zichen and the others had just killed the connate ferocious beasts. Then the demon sect would dare to fight to the death and kill all living beings in the primordial world. The reason why Feng Zichen and the others did not kill the connate ferocious beasts was because they were worried about this. However, the current situation was different. This was the connate ferocious beasts overestimating themselves and taking the initiative to attack Feng Zichen. Then they were killed by Feng Zichen. No one could find fault with it. As for setting up a trap to kill the connate ferocious beasts, this was using wisdom and not power that surpassed the rules. The demon sect could only pinch their noses and accept it. It was fine if they were not convinced. The demon sect could also come up with a plan to set up a trap to kill all living beings in the primordial world. In this way, even Feng Zichen and the others could not say anything. Oh no! Seeing the connate ferocious beasts rushing over, the 3 Taoist masters of the demon sect, who were fighting against Lu Eyes and Haotian, could not help but change their expressions greatly. Then, they directly used their secret skills to inform the experts of the demon sect to come and help. If they did not come and help, Feng Zichen's plan would really succeed, and the connate ferocious beasts would be finished. This was a heavy blow to the demon sect. This is really annoying. After killing the connate ferocious beasts that rushed over again, Feng Zichen gradually became impatient. Then he waved his sleeve and a transparent light curtain appeared, enveloping the whole canyon and blocking all the connate ferocious beasts that were attracted by the demon god flag outside the canyon. Now, there were still too few connate ferocious beasts, so it was not the best time to activate the array. Therefore, Feng Zichen did not activate the array, but let the connate ferocious beasts enter the canyon. However, under the attraction of the demon god flag, these connate ferocious beasts often rushed over recklessly. Although no matter how the connate ferocious beasts attacked, they could not hurt Feng Zichen at all, but the repeated attacks were inevitably annoying. For this reason, Feng Zichen set up a defense outside the canyon to prevent the Khanate ferocious beasts from entering the canyon. Of course, Feng Zichen did not forget his purpose. This defense was not invincible, and some of the Khanate ferocious beasts could still break it. Bang, 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 bang. The attraction of the demon god flag was too great. Even if they were blocked outside the canyon, those Khanate ferocious beasts still rushed into the canyon dauntlessly and desperately hit the defense, trying to break it. Unfortunately, with their current strength, they couldn't do that at all. More unfortunately, when more Khanate ferocious beasts were attracted by the demon god flag, they would have the power to break the defense of the canyon. It was time for the array to be activated. In other words, the array would be activated when the defense set up by Feng Zichen was broken by the Khanate ferocious beasts. At that time, the lives of the Khanate ferocious beasts would usher in the final countdown. As the aura of the demon god spread, a large number of Khanate ferocious beasts rushed from all over the untainted land and crazily attacked the boundary outside the canyon. Very good. Very good. I believe that after this, the remaining Khanate ferocious beasts will no longer have the ability to make waves in the untainted land. Looking at what was happening in front of him, Feng Zichen nodded to himself. Everything was going according to his imagination. Next, he would wait for the array to be activated and use the flesh and blood of the Khanate ferocious beasts to test the effect of the blood altar to see if it had the ability that he deduced. However, even if the blood altar failed this time, Feng Zichen would not lose out just by being able to kill all the Khanate ferocious beasts. You're courting death. Just as Feng Zichen was deep in thought, he suddenly felt a trace of disharmony in the void. Then, without thinking, he punched the void in front of him. Boom! Majestic divine power broke out. The heaven and earth trembled and the universe shook. Large areas of the void were destroyed. A strange demonic shadow was blasted out of the void by Feng Zichen. The dignified demon god of chaos actually launched a sneak attack. What an eye-opener! Looking at the demonic shadow in front of him, Feng Zichen sneered coldly. This person actually wanted to take advantage of his unpreparedness to quietly destroy the demon god flag, to destroy Feng Zichen's plan and rescue the Khanate ferocious beasts. It was really, how should he put it? If this was done by a master of the demon sect, Feng Zichen could completely understand. However, it was the demon god of chaos who launched the attack, which shocked Feng Zichen. The arrogant demon god of chaos actually launched a sneak attack, which was a despicable thing. He had really fallen. It seemed that after reincarnation, the demon god of chaos had lost not only his invincible power, but also his ingrained arrogance. Was the impact of losing his power so great? Back then, when the 3,000 demon gods of chaos fought Pengu, even though they knew that they were no match for him, they still went to fight him openly instead of using any sinister means. The difference between before and after was too great. Moreover, this was what worried Feng Zichen the most. What worried him the most was how to deal with the demon god of chaos in the future. When an expert had no bottom line, the difficulty of dealing with him would increase several times. From this moment on, Feng Zichen understood that he had to be careful when facing the demon god of chaos in the future. They began to use their brains. Of course, being on guard did not prevent Feng Zichen from mocking the demon god of chaos. Humph! Junior, what do you know? Strategy is also a kind of strength. The demon god of chaos's expression changed several times before he reluctantly snorted. In fact, the demon god of chaos did not want to do this. They were also forced. If his power was still there, why would he use such a despicable method, like a sneak attack? He would have just flattened them. There was no other way. They, who had lost their invincible power, gradually remembered their forgotten minds. Then they began to use their wisdom. So much nonsense. After saying that lightly, Feng Zichen turned to Fushi and said, "You stay here and guard the demon god flag. I'll deal with them." As soon as he finished speaking, Feng Zichen raised the Zichen sword and rushed toward the demon god of chaos. At the same time, he did not forget to use the million sword illustration to trigger countless sword lights that swept toward the void in all directions. Humph! Humph! In the void, 2 muffled groans came one after another. Then, the countless sword lights were wiped out by 2 forces that suddenly surged out. Obviously, there were still 2 demon sect masters hiding in the surrounding void, ready to destroy the demon god flag at any time. However, at this moment, they were forced out by Feng Zichen's sword. That was normal. After all, there were now 6 demon sect masters. It was because of this that Feng Zichen wanted to test them and attack the void. Sure enough, there was a problem with this test. Haha, my 2 fellow Taoists from the demon sect. Since you're here, why hide? Why don't you come with me to discuss Tao? As he spoke, Feng Zichen activated the million sword illustration with all his strength. Unparalleled sword intent burst out, enveloping the 3 of them and rushing toward Lu Eyes and Haotian. Although he was very confident in his strength, he did not think that he had the ability to fight against 3 demon sect masters alone. If there were 2 of them, he might be able to give it a try. However, there were 3 of them. Therefore, Feng Zichen planned to join forces with Lu Eyes and Haotian to deal with the demon sect masters together. In this way, although it was 3 against 6, with the support of the Celestial Emperor's power, they might not lose. Rumble. Feng Zichen and the other 3 joined the battlefield, causing the already intense battle to become even more intense. Even if only a trace of the aftermath of the battle between 9 primordial Chaos Tao Masters was leaked, it was enough to kill an ordinary Sage-to-Be. If it hit the Eldritch world, it would be destructive to the world. For this reason, the 9 of them moved the battlefield to the deepest part of the void to avoid affecting the Eldritch world. Among them, Feng Zichen and the other 2 were naturally worried about the Eldritch world. The 6 demon sect masters were naturally not so kind. The reason why they moved the battlefield was that they were afraid of affecting the Khanate ferocious beasts. One had to know that there were many Khanate ferocious beasts gathered outside the battlefield. If the aftermath was leaked, the Eldritch world would naturally not end well. However, those Khanate ferocious beasts would not end well either. This is tough. Let's join forces. In the depths of the void, after several rounds of fighting with the 6 primordial Chaos Tao Masters of the demon sect, Feng Zichen and the other 2 decided to join forces and summon the Phantom of the Real Celestial Emperor to kill the 6 in front of them in one fell swoop. All right, the 3 of them looked at each other and reached a consensus. Then they released their powers of the heavenly gods with all their might and let them merge in the air. Boom! Vast pressure pervaded the air. A blurry phantom of the Celestial Emperor appeared. Its entire body was enveloped by the projection of the Eldritch world, releasing an extremely terrifying aura. However, compared to the last time when they dealt with demon ancestor Rahu, the power of the Celestial Emperor's phantom was much weaker this time because of the absence of Great Emperor Zue. It appeared even more blurry. Moreover, the Eldritch world's phantom around him, apart from the netherworld that had yet to appear, even the boundless starry sky had disappeared without a trace. Its power had also fallen from the 12th level of the primordial Chaos Tao Master to the 9th level of the primordial Chaos Tao Master. Although it was still extremely powerful, it was much weaker than before. It was on a completely different level. However, even so, the 6 demon sect masters were far from being able to contend with it with their strength. Kill! The 3 of them controlled the Celestial Emperor's phantom and charged towards the 6 demon sect masters. However, Feng Zichen and the others had a joint attack method. As the reincarnation of the Chaos Demon God, how could the 6 demon sect masters not have a corresponding trump card? That's it. Is that all you've got? How dare you dream of killing us? You're really courting death. The 6 primordial chaos Tao masters of the demon sect were not afraid at all when they saw the celestial emperor's phantom. Instead, they sneered as if they did not take it seriously at all. Fellow Taoists, join forces to summon the will of chaos and kill them all. Let these eldritch world beings know that the majesty of the chaos demon gods is not to be offended. A chaos demon god looked at the 3 of them and said coldly, Chapter 568. The 6 chaos demon gods roared in unison and connected their auras to communicate with the will of chaos. Chaos demon gods were born from the creation of great Tao and chaos. It could be said that they were born with the ability to communicate with the will of chaos. This kind of power was not obvious on one chaos demon god, but if many chaos demon gods worked together, they could even attract the support of the will of chaos. And the more chaos demon gods there were, the stronger the support of the will of chaos would be. What's more, if hundreds of chaos demon gods worked together, they could totally summon the incarnation of great Tao. If 3,000 chaos demon gods worked together, they could really summon the supreme great Tao. In this way, who could be their opponent? This was a life-saving method left by the great Tao and the will of chaos for chaos demon gods. Unfortunately, while this sort of technique was extremely powerful, it had a fatal weakness. It could only be effective on outsiders, but not on chaos demon gods who were of the same race. In this way, this supreme method was completely useless, because in the chaos era, chaos demon gods were only enemies of chaos demon gods. The other creatures of chaos living in the chaos did not even have the courage to look at chaos demon gods, let alone be their opponents. This was awkward. Although the life-saving method was invincible, there was no chance to use it. Pangu was also a member of chaos demon gods. Therefore, during the tribulation of splitting open the sky, even if chaos demon gods were in such a desperate situation, they could not use their life-saving method. Otherwise, thousands of chaos demon gods worked together. They could directly summon the incarnation of great Tao. Pangu might not be their opponent. Moreover, even if Pangu won, after the battle with the incarnation of great Tao, he probably did not have the extra strength to split open the sky. Of course, the situation was completely different now. Because he was killed by Pangu, chaos demon gods had no choice but to reincarnate into the untainted land, so they lost their origin and their strength fell greatly. This led to the invincible chaos demon gods in the chaos to have worthy opponents. They were the great masters of the untainted land. At the same time, because the enemy was no longer chaos demon gods, they could also use the life-saving method given by the great Tao and the will of chaos. Boom! Following the actions of the 6 chaos fiend gods, the outer realm of chaos also sent something. In the depths of the primal chaos, where the origin of primal chaos was located and where the great Tao lived in seclusion, there was suddenly some movement today. A summoning force was born from the void and connected with the will of chaos. In the next moment, the origin of chaos was boiling. Formless ripples spread out, causing great tremors in the depths of the chaos. Rumble. Boundless chaotic chi surged, setting off enormous tides in the chaos. Wave after wave, it created countless dangers and destroyed countless worlds floating in the chaos. At the same time, countless beasts living in the chaos and experts from unknown worlds all hid themselves, afraid that they would be affected by the chaos tide. The movement of the chaos origin could be said to have affected the entire situation, causing a huge impact on the endless chaos. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Amidst the boiling of the origin of chaos, an extremely ancient, mighty, and noble was slowly awakened. His greatness could not be described in words. His existence was completely incomprehensible. His antiquity could be traced back to the beginning of everything. If one really had to describe it with words, it would be that it was even more ancient, mighty, and noble than Pangu. This was the will of chaos, the embodiment of the entire chaos. To a certain extent, he could almost be compared to the great Tao. He was the carrier of the great Tao. He carried on the most perfect great Tao. The awakening of the will of chaos naturally could not be hidden from his neighbor, the great Tao. But the great Tao did not react to this. The great Tao was in action. It was really in action. For the great Tao, existence was reason. He would not destroy the things that existed and would allow them to develop. Pangu was the same, the chaos fiend gods were the same, the primal chaos was the same, and all living beings in the primal chaos were the same. As the beginning, the source of everything, the product of nothing, the great Tao was the most perfect. All imperfections were produced in contrast to his perfection. He contained everything, including the known and the unknown. Everything that existed was within the scope of his containment. In other words, apart from nothing, everything that existed was a part of the great Tao. In this way, why would the great Tao hurt him? The battle between the chaos fiend gods and the primal chaos was completely meaningless to him. Since that was the case, why would he interfere? The great Tao was in action. It was not the inaction of the Grand Pure One. It was the true inaction. Sensing the request of the chaos fiend gods, the will of chaos did not hesitate. It immediately separated a trace of power and transmitted it to the primal chaos through the connection to support the 6 chaos fiend gods. Although it was only a trace of power, it could not be underestimated, because this trace of power belonged to the will of chaos. Even if this tiny bit of power was insignificant to him, that was only to the will of primal chaos. To others, this trace of power was something that they could not compare to even if they fought for their entire lives. The will of chaos was too strong, so strong that it was beyond imagination. A trace of his power was enough to allow the 6 chaos fiend gods to have power that was comparable to and beyond the primordial chaos. If this power was really transmitted to the 6 chaos fiend gods, then they would have the power to kill Feng Zichen and the other 2 in an instant. But unfortunately, the primal chaos was the primal chaos after all, not the chaos. It was protected by Pangu. Even if the will of chaos was very strong, the power transmitted was only a trace of, and it could not threaten Pangu at all. Therefore, when this trace of power passed through the barrier of heaven and earth and reached the primal chaos, most of it was weakened by Pangu. It fell from the realm beyond the primordial chaos to the realm of the primordial chaos, and it was still weakening. And when this trace of power descended on the 6 chaos fiend gods, the support it brought to them only made their realm barely reach the 9th level of the primordial chaos. It was the same level as the celestial emperor's shadow, condensed by Feng Zichen and the other 2. Both sides used their trump cards at the same time, making this evenly matched battle become evenly matched again. Suppress! The celestial emperor's shadow raised his hand, and the primordial pagoda of Mi Luo heaven appeared and suppressed the chaos fiend gods. Rumble! The celestial emperor's attack was naturally different. The primordial pagoda of Mi Luo heaven summoned by him was very clear, as if it was real. It was countless times stronger than the one summoned by Haotian. Swish! Under the suppression of the primordial pagoda of Mi Luo heaven, heaven and earth seemed to have stopped operating at this moment, turning into a monstrous force that pressed down on the chaos fiend gods. On the other side, the chaos fiend gods were not afraid at all. Using his body as a weapon, he formed a fist seal with his hands and struck at the primordial pagoda of Mi Luo heaven. Rumble! A monstrous aura spread out, sweeping through everything. The rules were distorted and broken. The void was like a mirror, shattering layer by layer. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a state of nothingness. Fortunately, this battle took place in the deepest part of the void, in an unknown time and space. Otherwise, the impact of this battle on the primal chaos would not be much worse than the war of the liches and demons, because even the liches and demons battle only involved 3 primordial chaos experts, and this battle was a battle between 9 primordial chaos experts. If things went wrong, the entire primal chaos might not exist. In the depths of the void, the battle was still ongoing, and the outside world was not calm either. As the 9 primordial chaos experts all went to the depths of the void, the demon sect experts gradually became active, especially when they discovered that Fushi was the only one left guarding the demon god flag. Almost without hesitation, they charged towards Fushi. For the future development of the demon sect, nothing must happen to the Khanate ferocious beasts. Therefore, the demon god flag, a treasure that could restrain the Khanate ferocious beasts, could not be left behind. It had to be destroyed. Human Tao Emperor Seal, suppress. Sensing the danger, Fushi directly took out the Khanate cardinal treasure, the human Tao Emperor Seal, releasing wisps of human Tao light to protect himself. At the same time, dragon-shaped purple airflows appeared on his body, emitting an aura that could destroy all laws. This was the Emperor Chi of the Heavenly Emperor. It was a type of Emperor Chi that had the supreme power to destroy all laws. Under the worship of all races, the Emperor Purple Chi in Fushi's body was nourished and gradually matured, evolving into the Emperor Chi of the Heavenly Emperor to protect Fushi. Rumble, an aura that belonged to a Khanate cardinal treasure, spread out and shattered the divine skills that the demon sect experts had thrown at him. After that, Fushi flicked his sleeve, and the Emperor Chi of the Heavenly Emperor surged out, turning into 6 extremely majestic and noble 9-clawed purple dragons that pounced into the surrounding void. Kill! Accompanied by a cold voice, for strange demonic shadows walked out of the void and charged towards Fushi. Their speed was extremely fast, but even though they were fast, the Emperor Chi of the Heavenly Emperor was faster. Before the 4 of them could reach Fushi, the 9-clawed divine dragon, formed by the Emperor Chi of the Heavenly Emperor, pounced over and crashed into them. The 4 of them did not care and raised their fists to meet it. But in the next moment, the expressions of the 4 changed drastically. They could not care less about killing Fushi and hurriedly retreated. What a strange power! In the distance, the 4 of them stopped in their tracks and looked at their right fists with ugly expressions. It was this fist that blasted towards the Emperor Chi of the Heavenly Emperor. It was also this blow that caused them to suffer a great loss. They did not know what kind of power that purple true dragon was formed from, but it was unimaginably domineering. When their power came into contact with it, it was as if they had met their natural enemy and melted rapidly. Sensing that something was wrong, the 4 of them hurriedly retreated, but there was still a portion of the Emperor Chi that followed their fists and entered their bodies. Although this portion of the Emperor Chi brought them some trouble, it was not enough to hurt them. What really made their expressions change was, if they wanted to expel this Emperor Chi, they would need to use several times the power of the Emperor Chi to succeed. This meant that the essence of the Emperor Chi was much higher than theirs, and when it was reflected on the body of the owner of the Emperor Chi, it meant that if he was in the same realm as them, he could easily fight several people at once. That was too terrifying. With this thought in mind, the 4 of them hurriedly raised their heads to look at Fushi. When they found that his realm was only at the great perfection of the sage-to-be, they heaved a sigh of relief. That's right, these 4 demons were all half-step primordial chaos. As the 4 great emissaries of the demon sect, their status was even higher than that of the demon sect elders, second only to the demon ancestor Luo Ho and the demon god Ji, due they were born at the end of the primordial era and attained their Tao in the ancient times. They were almighty figures that dominated the ancient times. If not for the birth of the chaos demon god, they would have been the supreme ruler of the demon sect in the absence of the demon ancestor Luo Ho. In fact, although the Emperor Chi of the Heavenly Emperor was strong, it was not to this extent. It could only be said that these 4 demons were unlucky. The cultivation of the demon sect was mainly based on Yin Chi, and the Emperor Chi of the Heavenly Emperor was the most masculine and masculine, which happened to be the nemesis of Yin-Chi. Therefore, the power of destroying all laws was unleashed to the extreme, causing a huge psychological trauma to the four of them. This person is strange. Let's attack with all our might and try to kill him in one blow. The four of them looked at each other and charged towards Fuxi again. And because they were afraid of the Emperor Qi of the Heavenly Emperor, the four of them did not dare to hold back and went all out in every move. What was even more terrifying was that, in order to kill Fuxi as soon as possible, they used their spirit treasures. One had to know that the four demons were not like the shadow demon. They were born in the primordial era and dominated the ancient times. They did not lack connate spirit treasures. For example, their spirit treasures were all supreme-grade connate spirit treasures with astonishing power. Under the siege of the four of them, even with the connate spirit treasure, the human Tao Emperor seal, Fuxi was gradually losing. It was not that Fuxi was not strong enough, but he had to protect the demon god flag while fighting the enemy, which made him unable to unleash his full strength. In this way, how could he be a match for the four of them? Crack! Crack! At this moment, the defense that Feng Zichen had set up outside the canyon was finally broken through by more and more connate ferocious beasts. In a few breaths, a large number of connate ferocious beasts poured into the canyon. Primordial Chaos River Formation, open! Fuxi's reaction was not slow. When the connate ferocious beasts poured into the canyon, he directly activated the Primordial Chaos River Formation outside the canyon. In an instant, the He-Tu and the Luo Shu appeared, deducing the heavenly stems and earthly branches, the 9 palaces and 8 trigrams, gradually forming an array that contained everything. Connate Taoist, rhymes filled the air. Primordial Chaos River Formation, connate form. Swoosh! A ray of primordial chaos light flashed and swept the 4 demons who were besieging Fuxi into the array. After that, Fuxi held the demon god flag and also entered the array. As for the connate ferocious beasts, they completely ignored the array and continued to rush into the canyon, which was also the array. It had to be said that the demon god flag had a great influence on them, almost making them forget the danger. Of course, this also had to do with the fact that the connate ferocious beasts did not have intelligence. There was a certain relationship. Open! After the 4 demons fell into the array, they immediately knew that they had fallen into a trap and directly rushed out together. They had seen this primordial chaos river formation before and knew its power well. If there was no Fuxi, even if they fell into the array, they were confident that they would be able to break it. Chapter 569. However, if Fuxi was added, the 4 demons would not be able to break through with the power of the formation. It was even possible that they would be lost in their ray formation, and there was a possibility that they would die. However, before the 4 demons could rush out of the formation, Fuxi had already arrived at the center of the formation and activated the power of the primordial river formation to the extreme. Rumble! Vast power surged, releasing the Tao of the universe's changes, evolving the upper-class world and various phenomena. At this moment, with the support of the primordial river formation, Fuxi felt that he had entered a mysterious realm, as if he had achieved perfection. He understood this was the power of the primordial chaos Tao realm, the combination of the god and the formation, allowing him to temporarily possess the power of the primordial chaos. At this moment, looking at the 4 demons again, Fuxi felt that they had become incomparably small, as if he could kill them with a raise of his hand. However, Fuxi also understood that these were all illusions. The 4 emissaries of the demon sect had cultivated to such a realm and had long become the vessels of the chaos demon god. They had incredible power. Perhaps they could not defeat a primordial chaos expert, but they could definitely resist 1 or 2. Go in! Shaking his head, Fuxi eliminated the delusions in his heart and waved at the 4 demons. An invisible ripple spread out and swept them into the canyon. That was where the galaxy cosmic light formation was. Although the primordial river formation was strong, it was still a little difficult to deal with the four demons. In particular, there were a large number of connate ferocious beasts in the formation. Those connate ferocious beasts were of different realms. The weak ones were as strong as Daluo Jinxian, while the strong ones were comparable to late-stage Sage-to-be experts. With so many connate ferocious beasts and 4 half-primordial demons, Fushi did not think that the primordial river formation could withstand their impact. Therefore, Fushi simply sent the 4 demons into the depths of the canyon and used the galaxy cosmic light formation to deal with them to relieve the pressure on the primordial river formation. We're out. What does he mean? Inside the canyon, the 4 demons climbed up from the void and looked around. They realized that they had already left the primordial river formation. This puzzled them. They did not understand what Fushi meant and why he had let them out. Whatever. Anyway, let's leave this place first. Worried that Fushi might have other plans, the 4 demons didn't dare to stay here for long. They quickly tore open the void and planned to leave this place. However, when they walked out of the broken void, they found that what they saw was not the scene outside the canyon, but an extremely vast starry sky. Galactic cosmic light array. Although this supreme formation had been activated, the space within the formation canyon had long been enveloped by it. It would be fine if the 4 demons flew out, but they were planning to leave through the void. This was simply walking into a trap. Of course, they plunged headfirst into the galactic cosmic light array. Does this place look like the boundless starry sky? Could it be that we've arrived at the boundless starry sky? Not good, we've been tricked. Let's go. In the blink of an eye, the 4 demons realized that something was wrong. They were about to break open the void again to leave this place. Although he didn't know where the starry sky was, it definitely wasn't a boundless starry sky. They knew how far they could go in the void that they had broken through. It was impossible to casually open a void passage and allow them to cross the endless void and arrive at the boundless starry sky. I can't open it. One of the 4 demons raised his hand and struck the void, about to open a void passage. However, the result surprised him. He couldn't open this space. He, who didn't believe in heresy, tried to attack the void a few more times. However, the void here was abnormally firm. No matter how many times he tried, he couldn't shake it in the slightest. What? Seeing this, the other 3 of the 4 demons were also shocked. They all attacked the void in front of them. Boom! 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 3 violent forces exploded in the starry sky, shaking the stars, but they didn't cause any damage to the void. It was as if their attacks had hit nothing. There are ghosts here. We can't stay here for long. Let's join forces and break through the void with all our strength. The 4 of them looked at each other, raised the connate spirit treasure in their hands, and fiercely attacked the void. Rumble! The starry sky shook and stars lit up one after another, blooming with bright light, forming a vast galaxy in the starry sky. At the same time, billions of starlight gathered and turned into a huge beam of light. Cosmic light. Light of time. This was the impact of the cosmic light array of the galaxy, and it was activated spontaneously. Whoosh! The galaxy flowed and surged toward the 4 demons. The cosmic light flickered and brushed toward the 4 demons. For a moment, space condensed and time stood still. The 4 demons were forcefully fixed on the spot, unable to move at all. They could only watch as the cosmic light surged toward them. In the blink of an eye, the 4 of them were drowned by the cosmic light of the galaxy. Russell, being in the cosmic light of the galaxy, the 4 demons seemed to have come to the long river of time and space. They were carried up by the starlight and kept looking back. And in this process, their power was also constantly flowing away. Time reversal. It was one of the most terrifying, supreme, divine abilities of the primordial world, and also one of the most heaven-defying divine abilities of the primordial world, reversing the enemy's time and returning them to the stage when they had just cultivated. In this way, wouldn't it be easy to kill them? Such an ability was feared by countless people in the primordial world. Although the realm after Daluo was eternal, once it was achieved, there was no risk of falling. However, realm was realm, and strength was strength. The two were completely different. Reversing time, it was strength, but it was realm. If one had realm but no strength, how much strength could they exert? Facing an expert of the same level, they could be killed with a flip of their hand. Just as the four demons were trapped in the cosmic light of the galaxy formation, elsewhere, outside the canyon, Fushi had fully recovered the power of the primordial river formation. He displayed his supreme killing methods and began to harvest connate ferocious beasts on a large scale. Whoosh streaks of primordial Tao light intertwined like the sharpest sword, forming a huge net above the formation and heading toward the connate ferocious beasts in the formation. Puchi! 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 The primordial Tao light was the supreme killing light. It was true that one would die if touched, and one would be injured if grazed. Under the attack of the primordial Tao light, the connate ferocious beasts of Daluo, Jinxian's level, were almost defenseless. Just being touched by the primordial Tao light was like being cut by countless swords and knives, slicing them into countless pieces. They died without a complete corpse. Only the sage-to-be connate ferocious beasts with extremely strong physical bodies could withstand the attack of the primordial Tao light. However, there were still a few sage-to-be connate ferocious beasts. Most of them were Daluo Jinxian's level. Therefore, every time the primordial Tao light flashed, it would harvest the lives of a large number of connate ferocious beasts, leaving countless pieces of flesh on the spot. Not long after, the entire canyon was covered with the broken bodies of the connate ferocious beasts, turning into a veritable swamp of flesh and blood. A slaughterhouse. This place had seemed to have become a huge slaughterhouse, a slaughterhouse that specialized in slaughtering connate ferocious beasts. The smell of blood, an extremely strong smell of blood, spread out from the canyon and spread to the surrounding tens of thousands of miles. However, it was such a strong smell of blood that not only did it not stop the connate ferocious beasts from surging over, but it also stimulated them even more. It made them even crazier. More and more connate ferocious beasts were surging over. It was also at this time that Feng Zichen, who was guarding the World Tree, used the roots of the World Tree to quietly come here. The roots of the World Tree were all over the untainted land and countless dimensions. Moreover, the roots of the World Tree also had the ability to ignore any seals. In other words, through the roots of the World Tree, one could reach any place in the untainted land at any time. In the entire untainted land, only Feng Zichen, who was the owner of the World Tree, could use this ability of the World Tree. It was precisely because of this that Feng Zichen took the initiative to take on the responsibility of guarding the World Tree. Through the World Tree, he could provide support at any time and return at any time. It could be said that he came and went like the wind. Not bad at all. Looking at the flesh and blood of the connate ferocious beasts all over the canyon, Feng Zichen's eyes gradually narrowed. Then he formed a seal with both hands and activated the power of all the Daos in the heavens, gradually outlining the phantom image of a 9-story altar in the void. This phantom image was the blood altar. It was the runes that Feng Zichen deduced to build the blood altar according to the results of his deduction. Next, he would pour enough power into this phantom image to turn it from illusion to reality and be completely born. Blood altar refine. Calming down, Feng Zichen performed a secret skill to guide the flesh and blood of the ferocious beasts to the phantom image of the blood altar on the ground. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The phantom image of the blood altar seemed to have sensed the aura of the flesh and blood. It trembled and emitted an indescribable wave, shattering all the flesh and blood that surged over. Whoosh, whoosh! At this time, there seemed to be a huge whirlpool around the blood altar, emitting a huge suction force to devour and refine the shattered flesh and blood. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh! Nourished by the flesh and blood of the connate ferocious beasts, the blood altar became more and more magical. Wisps of bloody light bloomed from it, making it look abnormally demonic. At the same time, it gradually became fuller and began to have a texture. It was no longer so illusory and was gradually transforming into reality. Roar! A huge roar was heard, disrupting Feng Zichen's thoughts. Looking up, it was a connate ferocious beast in the late stage of the sage-to-be. It resisted the attack of the primordial Tao light and came to the edge of the primordial river formation. It was constantly attacking the formation. Ordinary primordial Tao light could no longer cause fatal damage to a connate ferocious beast at this level. With the power of the primordial river formation, it would need to mobilize more power to kill it. But in this way, it would give the other connate ferocious beasts a chance to breathe, causing an inexplicable change. Therefore, Fushi thought for a while and opened a passage at the edge of the formation, allowing it to leave. Since the primordial river formation did not have any extra power to deal with the sage-to-be connate ferocious beast, it would be left to the galaxy cosmic light formation to deal with it. In this regard, Feng Zichen, who was silently watching this place, did not have any dissatisfaction. According to his plan, the primordial river formation only played the role of screening, making it convenient to kill the weak connate ferocious beasts. The powerful connate ferocious beasts would be left to the galaxy cosmic light formation to deal with. As soon as the sage-to-be connate ferocious beast left the primordial river formation, it entered the galaxy cosmic light formation. What greeted it was the bombardment of billions of stars. In just a few breaths, the sage-to-be connate ferocious beast was blasted into pieces by countless stars. Its flesh and blood flew toward the blood altar under the guidance of Feng Zichen. Whoosh! After devouring the flesh and blood of the sage-to-be ferocious beast, the blood altar suddenly lit up and gave birth to mysterious runes. Seeing this, Feng Zichen could not help but cheer up and stare at those mysterious runes. He knew that whether the blood altar had the ability to bring the dead back to life depended on these mysterious runes. Runes were the foundation of everything. Life and death, fate, sacrifice. How could it be? In the beginning, Feng Zichen looked at these runes and could still see the meaning they represented, such as life and death, fate, sacrifice, and so on. These were the great Daos that were closely related to the resurrection of the dead. At the same time, this was also the knowledge that he was involved in deducing the blood altar. But gradually, Feng Zichen could not understand. As the number of runes increased, the knowledge involved became wider and wider. These great Daos intertwined with each other and actually produced an inexplicable change, spontaneously deducing downward. This meant that the refinement of the blood altar was gradually getting out of Feng Zichen's control. But he did not panic. Everything was as expected. An experiment. It was inevitable that there would be accidents. Moreover, this change was deliberately facilitated by Feng Zichen. The refinement of the blood altar involved too many things. All kinds of great Daos were intertwined, and there were endless changes. Even with the help of the creation jade disc and Hongming Daozhong, Feng Zichen could not deduce all of them. Therefore, he thought of a shortcut. That was to let it evolve spontaneously. Human strength was limited, but the Tao was endless. What Feng Zichen could not do, the Tao could. He listed out the Daos involved in refining the blood altar one by one. Then he guided them by the side and let them evolve according to his will. Of course, this method was not as simple as it was said to be. He had gone through countless difficulties before he finally succeeded. There was no need to describe them one by one. This method, it might not be 100% successful, but it was much better than Feng Zichen's own deduction. Tisk, tsk, tsk. How complicated. Looking at the increasingly complicated runes, even Feng Zichen had a headache. However, he was still trying his best to memorize and understand the meaning of these runes. These could all be turned into a foundation and deepen his understanding of the great Tao. Dang! Hongmeng Daozhong rang softly. Buzz! The creation jade disc fragment trembled slightly. The combination of the two raised Feng Zichen's comprehension to an unimaginable level. Suddenly, the runes that he could not understand before were no longer secrets in front of him. Just as Feng Zichen was crazily absorbing knowledge, the blood light around the blood altar suddenly flickered violently. Then, there was a bang sound. The entire blood sacrifice altar exploded. Chapter 570. I failed. Looking at this scene in a daze, Feng Zichen was slightly absent-minded, but after a while he readjusted his state of mind. This was all within his expectations. The blood altar's function was so heaven-defying that it was naturally extremely difficult to refine. Of course, it was impossible to succeed in one try. Failure was inevitable. Only by experiencing a few more failures could one summarize enough experience to refine the blood altar perfectly. Previously, Feng Zichen had comprehended the runes not only to deepen his foundation, but also to summarize his experience and detect the inadequacies. Therefore, after failing, he would make adjustments in the next experiment. Next, Feng Zichen continued to draw the flesh and blood of the innate ferocious beasts and began to refine the blood altar again. We can't delay any longer. If we delay any longer, we will all die in this formation. In the galaxy cosmic light formation, under the erosion of the power of time and space, the strength of the four demons had fallen from half-step primordial chaos to the great circle of sage-to-be. Moreover, it would not be long before they fell to the late stage of sage-to-be. At this time, in order to survive, there was only one way in front of the four demons, which was to increase their strength at all costs so that they could break free from the restraint of the galaxy cosmic light formation. Otherwise, after a while, the strength of the four demons would be reduced to the level of Daluo Jinxian. In this way, his time of death would come. Okay, later I will use a secret method to stimulate the ferocity of the innate ferocious beasts and make them crazily attack the formation. Then, we will seize the opportunity to fight with all our strength and blast open the formation in one fell swoop. The leader of the four demons looked at the innate ferocious beasts below and said with some surprise, as time passed, more and more innate ferocious beasts came. Among them, there were no less than 100 innate ferocious beasts at the sage-to-be level. These innate ferocious beasts were all gathered in the galaxy cosmic light formation and were desperately rushing to the deepest part of the canyon. Although the galaxy cosmic light formation was powerful, it could not kill all these innate ferocious beasts at the sage-to-be level in a short time. After being bombarded by countless stars again and again, although many of these innate ferocious beasts had died, there were still dozens of them who survived. And this was the hope of the four devils to break the formation. The combined strength of the four of them might not be able to break the galactic cosmic light array, but with the addition of dozens of sage-to-be connate ferocious beasts, with such power, he would definitely be able to break the formation. Burn, the eldest of the four demons, ignited the blood of the chaos demon god in his body. Suddenly, a tyrannical and overbearing aura rose from his body. It broke through the blockade of the cosmic light and swept toward the dozens of connate ferocious beasts. Roar, roar, roar. Under the influence of this aura, the Xiantian ferocious beast went completely mad. Its eyes turned scarlet, and it became even more ferocious. At the same time, they broke free from the influence of the demon god flag. Rumble. The Xiantian ferocious beast, which had gone completely berserk, no longer dashed towards the depths of the canyon. Instead, it was constantly destroying everything in front of it. At this moment, the galaxy cosmic light array. He received a huge shock. Chance. Seeing this, the four demons hurriedly burned their origin source to forcefully increase their strength and break free from the space-time power. Open for me. For as soon as they regained their freedom, the four demons joined forces and blasted toward the starry sky in an attempt to shatter the formation. Boom! The galaxy trembled and the stars swayed. Under this attack, the galaxy cosmic light array shook violently. Even the heavenly cycle star banner, which was the foundation of the formation, had cracks appearing on it. After all, it was not a connate object. Its strength was still insufficient and could not withstand such a large-scale bombardment. It was damaged, causing a flaw to appear in the formation. In response, Feng Zichen thought about it and formed a Taoist seal toward the four demons. The galaxy cosmic light array could not be lost. He could not let the four demons destroy it. What? The four demons who had failed their first attack were about to launch a second attack. Just as they were about to attack, they felt an irresistible force surging from the void and fiercely imprinted on their bodies, slamming them into the deepest part of the canyon. Poof! For a mouthful of blood was involuntarily spat out from the four demons' mouths. So powerful! Lying on the ground, the four demons still said with lingering fear. With just one attack, the four of them were severely injured. In other words, the person who had such power had the ability to kill the four of them. Dijiang, Candle Dragon, Shibai Shi, Gomeng, Zhu Rong. Just as the four demons were shocked, 12 ancient chanting voices came from the void, constantly chanting the names of the 12 ancestral sorcerers. This aura, this is the 12 divine beings' formation. Oh no, let's go. Hearing these voices, the four demons were puzzled at first. Then, as if they had thought of something, they could not help but scream in shock. Then the four demons got up from the ground. Ignoring their injuries, they were about to break through the void and leave this place. Unfortunately, it was all too late. As the void shook, 12 towering figures walked out from it. They sealed off all space and time and charged toward the four demons. Boom! A terrifying battle broke out. Not far away, Feng Zichen glanced at them indifferently and then looked away. The four demons were dead for sure. They were no longer worth his attention. If they were still in peak condition, they might have a chance of survival. But now they were all severely injured. There was no hope of escaping. As for inviting the will of the Chaos Demon God to descend, that would undoubtedly make them die faster and more thoroughly. It was the 12 ancestral sorcerers who were fighting the four demons. The ancestral sorcerers who were known as the Son of Pengu. It would be fine if the will of the Chaos Demon God did not descend. But once it did, it would definitely activate the mark of Pengu in the 12 ancestral sorcerers. TSK, TSK, TSK. If it really came to that, perhaps what welcomed the Chaos Demon God, it would be an axlight that crossed space and time. Time flowed like water. In the blink of an eye, 100 years had passed. On this day, Feng Zichen, who had experienced dozens of failures, finally saw the dawn of success. Is it going to succeed? In the dark, Feng Zichen stared at the blood altar that was taking shape. His tone was slightly excited. Dozens of times, after the first failure, he had experienced dozens of failures. This time he was the closest to success. Everything was going according to his plan. Shwa, shwa, shwa. When the last rune was completed, a strange blood-red light was emitted from the blood altar and dyed the sky and earth a blood-red color. Darkness, strangeness, inauspiciousness, death aura, and other negative energies appeared one after another within the blood-red light, causing this place to become increasingly strange. Even someone as powerful as Feng Zichen could not help but feel a chill down his spine in this environment. Oh my God! What's going on? Surprised, Feng Zichen subconsciously looked at the blood altar. As far as his eyes could see, there was a boundless sea of blood. After a while, the sea of blood slowly receded, revealing a 9-story altar. It was blood red all over, as if it was flowing blood. It looked abnormally strange. Moreover, his body was filled with a strange and ominous aura. It was as if one would be unable to extricate themselves from it with just a glance, giving birth to all kinds of ominous things. Even Feng Zichen, after staring at the blood altar for a long time, felt that his mind was a little restless, as if he was about to sink into it. Hiss! There won't be any problem with this blood altar, right? Feng Zichen sucked in a breath of cold air and couldn't help but worry. Even his mind was shaken. Didn't this mean that if an ordinary sage-to-be stared at the blood altar, his mind would be taken away if he was not careful? This was too scary. What kind of existence was a sage-to-be? There were a few experts in the untainted land who could dominate a region, but they could not defend against the blood altar. From this, one could see how strange this treasure was. Moreover, what was even more worrisome was the ominous aura that enveloped the blood altar. This ominous aura came from nowhere, and its function was unknown. But facing it, even someone as powerful as Feng Zichen could not help but feel a chill down his spine, and he dared not let it get close to him. This alone was enough to make Feng Zichen wary. After all, with his current strength and identity, there were not many forces in the world that could hurt him. This is troublesome. Looking at the blood altar in front of him, Feng Zichen was a little hesitant for a moment, not knowing what to do. He wanted to test its ability, but he was also a little worried that the strange, ominous aura on its body would cause bad consequences and involve great karma. Fellow Taoist Ziwei, what kind of magic treasure are you refining? Why is it so strange? Just as Feng Zichen was hesitating, Hao Tian's voice came from afar. Looking up, he saw that in the depths of the void, Hao Tian and the other 2 and the 6 people from the demon sect had stopped fighting at the same time and were rushing towards him. It turned out that the moment the blood altar was formed, the commotion caused was too great. Even the 9 people in the depths of the void felt the spine-chilling, ominous aura. This shocked them. To be able to make existences who had reached their level feel spine-chilling. How powerful was that kind of power? They were shocked and puzzled. It actually caused both sides to stop fighting at the same time. They searched for the source of that aura. As soon as he came out, Hao Tian saw Great Emperor Ziwei and the blood altar at the same time. The power that made his hair stand on end was emitted from this treasure. Curious, Hao Tian asked directly. This was the scene from before. Keep. Glancing at the 6 demon gods, Feng Zichen waved his sleeve and put the blood altar into his sleeve. Of course, this was in the eyes of outsiders. In fact, he had put the blood altar into Hongmeng Daozhong. Before he figured out the origin of the ominous aura, Feng Zichen did not dare to let it get close to him. He did not intend to let the other magic treasures be contaminated by the ominous aura. If something went wrong, he would suffer a great loss. Therefore, only Hongmeng Daozhong, the doctrine artifact that could be said to be a treasure of the Great Path and the source of all Tao, he dared to let it come into contact with the ominous aura. After all, Hongmeng was the beginning of being. No matter how strange the ominous aura was, it could not escape the scope of Hongmeng. After doing all this, Feng Zichen turned to Hao Tian and said, "Brother Hao Tian, we'll talk about this later. Right now, the most important thing is to send all of these old seniors away." As he spoke, Feng Zichen looked at the 6 chaos demon gods. What he meant was that he wanted to join forces with Hao Tian and the other 2 to kill the 6 demon gods here. The effect of the blood altar could be tested at any time. However, there were not many opportunities to kill the 6 chaos demon gods. Perhaps this was the only chance. for the primordial world, for all living beings, and for himself. He could not let go of this opportunity. Fellow Taoist, you're right. Hearing this, Hao Jian nodded. He was also someone who knew the severity of the situation. He knew that this was not the time to discuss that strange, magic treasure. Seizing the opportunity to kill the chaos demon gods was the most important thing. Do it! With a thought, Feng Zichen released the power of the heavenly gods that belonged to great Emperor Ziwei and integrated it into the celestial Darch projection in the void. Suddenly, a boundless starry sky appeared in the projection of the primordial world. At the same time, the celestial Darch projection, which was originally extremely blurry, also became clearer, gradually revealing a perfect face. Boom! With the support of great Emperor Ziwei's authority, the celestial Darch projection's strength increased greatly. It rose from the 9th level of the primordial chaos to the 12th level of the primordial chaos. A powerful aura swept out, pressing toward the 6 chaos demon gods in front. Humph! The chaos demon gods were not afraid at all. They also released their aura to fight against the celestial Darch projection. With the support of the will of chaos, the pride of the chaos demon gods returned. Therefore, how could the arrogant them tolerate lowering their heads? Of course, they would face the challenge head-on. Rumble, 2 extremely powerful auras collided with each other, causing space to collapse and all things to vanish into nothingness. And the result was naturally the chaos demon god's defeat. How could a 9th level chaos demon god fight against a 12th level chaos demon god? After a slight contact, the chaos demon gods were forced to retreat several steps. Kill! Feng Zichen and the other 3 were unforgiving. Seeing that the chaos demon gods were at a disadvantage, they controlled the celestial Darch projection and charged toward the chaos demon gods. Boom! The celestial Darch projection raised his hand to form a seal, connecting the dais of heaven and earth. Time and space were distorted, and a 33-story pagoda surrounded by Taoist light slowly emerged. A top-tier Khanate treasure, the Myluotian primordial pagoda. It was not a projection, nor was it a projection. It was the true body. The power of the celestial Darch projection was so strong that it distorted time and space, capturing the true body of the Myluotian primordial pagoda from the future and making it manifest in the present world to suppress and kill powerful enemies. The supreme treasure manifested and floated in the air. Its bottom was aimed at the chaos demon gods, and strands of creation Taoist light swept toward the chaos demon gods, trying to take them into the pagoda. Distorting time and space. What a powerful force! Under this force, even the powerful chaos demon gods could not help but be a little moved. Not daring to underestimate their opponent, the chaos demon gods directly used their strongest technique to attack the creation Taoist light. Splash! 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 The creation Taoist light was like a divine chain of order. With an inexplicable power, it directly ignored the chaos demon gods' supernatural powers and wrapped around their bodies, binding them and pulling them into the pagoda. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.